everybody. How y'all feeling today? Y'all feel good? So, if any of y'all have not checked in yet, that means your mind is still not here. What you can do is spend the next 1 minute telling ourselves, whatever worries or issues I have, I put it behind. And we really want to focus on today's session. So, we spend the next minute, just think about it and tell ourselves that you want to focus on today's session. Can we just spend a minute before we continue? Anything that's bothering you, just check it out and focus on today's session. And I've actually introduced myself to some of you. So you're not shy anymore, right? You're comfortable with me now, right? For those of you who have wished me, and those of you who have come in, don't be shy. I think one of the key things for today's session is we're talking about data. And really what I hope to do is to share my experiences with you all from a very different point of view. As we know that when you look at data, it's all about computing, about IT. I want to give you a different view today. And I think there's, Ashok yesterday was talking about learn, unlearn, relearn. So I want to just have a simple view before we start. I want you to think about the data view, the data point of view. Don't think about IT, don't think about modernization, just think about data. Because if you think from IT, when I talk about data, you'll forget. You won't understand. So just think from the data point of view. Then slowly pick up and understand how IT comes in. Would that be fine?
Yeah.
So I want to ask a question before we start. How many of you all deal with data? Put up your hands. The rest of you, do you deal with data? Any kind of data. Whether IT or non-IT, fine. How many of you all don't touch data at all in your work? Okay. So, as... Oops, sorry, false alarm. I need to put my charger in. Okay, fantastic. I got a very knowledgeable and supportive person here. NG. You all know NG, right? Okay. So, Randip was so nice and kind to share this background with my background to you all. I would say that I'm very lucky. I started off as a very young officer in the government, and I was one of the first few master planners in Singapore for the Ministry of Home Affairs to do master planning. And I've been dealing with data since 1992. When I was helping the ID card department, I was in charge of birth statistics. And I actually corrupted the birth database. Don't tell anybody, huh? Okay, so I'll just quickly move on. Okay, before I start, I want you to have these three views when we talk about implementing ICT systems. When we think of IT systems, you always think of what? Automation, I want to solve my problem. I would like us to take a step backwards, and we need to have 3 points of view. First, the process view. What do you mean by process? How many of you all are familiar with the concept of processes? Please put up your hand. So you all know what processes? You all don't know? Or you all shy? Okay. This concept of process is very important. 20 years ago in the Singapore government, nobody think in terms of processes. They think in terms of functions. Every agency has its own functions. And Singapore agencies never really coordinated with each other until the concept of processes came about. How many of you are familiar with the term business process re-engineering? 1, 2. The rest, have you heard of this term before? Have. Have you seen it in action? How many of you have seen business process re-engineering or redesign in action? Okay, I'm going to say something very fundamental. If you're going to implement a new IT system, and if you're not doing BPR, you have an automated system that doesn't solve your problems.
Okay, let me break a little bit. You say BPR คือ Business Process Improvement นะครับก็คือ Business Process Reengineering คือการปรับปรุงกระบวนการนะครับนี่เขาshort term. Okay, continue.
So, you all know what's a car, right? The car is a IT technology, right? When you develop an IT system and you don't do PPR, means your processes are not streamlined. So the car is technology. So what happens is that you'll be doing a lot of automation, you'll be doing a lot of things faster, but as like a car, you go in the wrong direction. What do I mean by that? So how many of you all have implemented IT systems? When after you implement the IT system, instead of improving your work, you have more work to do. How many of you have that experience? Have you heard of the concept of the paperless office? Yes?
Yes.
So the problem is that when we introduce new IT systems, we have not re-engineered our processes. We still use paper. And because you use paper, what happens? You have more work to do. You have to enter the data into the IT system. You have to also manage the paper. And this is something very fundamental. And this, to share with you, is a big problem in Vietnam. And I presume Vietnam has the Electronic Transactions Act. Are you all familiar with that? That means you recognize paper transactions paradigm, and you can use the same paradigm in the electronic transactions, and you recognize electronic transactions. Are you all familiar with that? Okay, this is a very fundamental concept, because electronic transactions have to be recognized in order for you to do electronic transactions, do e-commerce, even e-government. The problem is that many countries, when they look at electronic transactions, they forget to re-engineer the paper part or fundamentally change the way government works. So I'll give you one simple example. Government always issues permits, right? And the permits are what? Paper-based. When you do e-services, when you issue your permits, must it be paper-based or can it be electronic-based? It should be electronic, right? So the problem is many government agencies have not looked at their own regulations to allow the use of paperless transactions and to have electronic permits or electronic documents as outputs to the citizen or even the business. So what is a process? A process is a series of activities that go across different departments. That means it's cross-cutting. It goes across departments. And departments understand how they are involved in producing an output to the citizen. I will share more examples later. Just treat this as a concept because my focus today is actually on data. But we must relook at the way we handle data. And if there's paper there, how do we handle it as electronic data or electronic document? So everybody's clear about process? Any questions?
I just want to share with you, in Thailand, some regulation even put a form in the law. You understand? In the law, in the act, they have a form as an attachment. And sometimes you have to have it, something like that.
Thank you. Okay, so any questions so far on the process part? Okay, let's go to people. So I want to ask you all, how many of you like to use paper or you all prefer to use the notebook or mobile phone? Who likes paper? I knew they're going to say that. So there is a fundamental point of view from the people, the mindset. You can use your own work productivity to have paper, but when you're in your organization, your department, or your business unit, you need to make use of the IT system. And it requires a change of mindset. And do you know why many IT systems have difficulties in implementation? Because they missed out on the people part, the communication. And there's three things that you need to be aware. You need to make people aware. We call this awareness. If you introduce an IT system without people knowing, would you get a reaction? Yes, right? You'll be not happy for a while. But if people explain to you the purpose and the benefits of the system, then, okay, you'll be aware and you'll slowly use it. But what's the next thing? They are not convinced. So how do you make them accept the new system? How do you get commitment from these users? You must communicate, you must get feedback. And when you introduce any new system, you have to get what? Commitment and consensus. You must listen to people's concerns. And lastly, we call it the adoption, where you actually train the people to use the system. So many systems fail because the people are not brought in to be aware, to accept, and to adopt the system. I'll share you an experience in Vietnam for the 112 that Mr. Van Dijk shared. Next week, you're going to implement the system. Then the management will tell you, oh, we're going to implement this system. You think there'll be reactions? Yes. And you know how they convince the people to use the system? They give them monetary incentive. So everybody starts using the system. But when the monetary incentive finishes, no more money left, people stop using the system. And it happened a lot. And as Van Dijk said, it was called the 112. I was in the 112, but not in a project directly. I was asked by ADB to do an e-government master plan for the Prime Minister's office. And I learned that the government unit in charge of this program didn't do much communication. They did quietly and they did a lot of documentation, but was never communicated to the people. So the people view is important. So when you get a new system, you must think, how are you going to get adoption by everybody? What are the issues you must have? And the biggest challenge when we look at government is that when you introduce a new IT system, you must change the process, right? When you change the process, what happens? It affects the policy. It may even affect the law. And this is something very fundamental. So if we want to plan for IT systems, not even talking about the data, we must really look at what are the laws, sub-laws that will affect the organization, especially when dealing with paper, dealing with electronic workflow. Okay? The last one is the data view. So what is the data view? Can anybody just try? Don't be shy. What do you mean by data view? I mentioned it just now. What do you mean by data view? Who wants to try? I don't have chocolates, but if you are going to answer, I'll get chocolates later and pass it to you. Anybody want to try? You want to try, man?
We can make the such as we do have a query or search from the data. I think it's gonna be a view, each view, so we can generate many views from the data.
Thank you. Everyone give a round of applause. So you have views of the data. Means that you think of how you can get benefits from the data. By having views of the data, you have different perceptions, insights on the data. And we'll talk about that more. Okay, thank you. So my question to you all now is, you look back, go back to your organization. How have you all implemented your IT systems? How have you all implemented your IT systems? Do you just look at automation? I just want to build a system to help me do efficiency. But what about the data piece? Actually, this view of IT systems is very fundamental. And in an organization, there are three types of IT systems. In any organization, you have your operations, right? So you have your operational IT system that will support your operations. For example, in the ID card department, you have operational IT system to issue ID cards. And your services are what? Face-to-face, right? The citizen comes, apply for ID card for those who are just turned 18. Your operational system will process, verify his record, then later issue the ID card. So that's called an operational system. Every government organization will have one or more operational IT systems. So if you are with NTSB, you have your own operational systems to help you to do regulations or whatever licenses you want to issue, for example. Then there are two more types of IT systems. The second one, we call it support systems. These are systems that are like finance and HR. So my question, do you have problems in your finance and HR systems as well? And the last system, and this is the most important for management, we call them management support systems. This is where they will do the management information systems that will help us to do reporting, to do analysis, forecasting. So in many organizations, we have these three types of systems. So my question to you, where does the data part come in? which is the most important part of data that you want to collect, and how do you present this data to management. So this is where, when you look at IT, you should look at these 3 points of view. And now we know that the web has come in. We introduce web services. So for example, ID card department or the passport or immigration department, you want to accept applications from the internet. I don't even say systems, are your processors ready to accept electronic passport applications, for example? So the question is, how would your e-system integrate back to your operational system? Then we have the latest, we talk about cloud technologies. You all know what, how many of you are aware what's the cloud? The rest, are you familiar what is cloud? A cloud is a kind of technology that makes use of virtualization so that we can, instead of depending on servers, physical servers to implement our systems, we use a concept called virtualization. Virtualization is like mixed imaginary servers. And with the cloud, we don't have to worry about servers anymore. We just know that when we want more computing resource, the vendor will help take care of it. You just know that the cloud is there for you to put your software systems on in a layman nutshell. Understand? So virtualization is a technology, but cloud is really changing the whole spectrum of how people work. And last time you pay money to purchase your IT systems. With cloud technologies, you don't have to pay investment capital cost anymore. You pay a subscription service. Okay? I'm spending quite a bit of time for this slide so that I want to set the context. Then when we go to data, I can just get you all to understand this. Because it took me quite a while to explain for countries that, how do you say, are very new to data and also cloud technologies. Any questions so far? Can follow? So in a nutshell, before we go to data, we must understand the challenges we are facing when we're implementing information systems. Information systems, when you implement these IT systems, whether operational, support, or management systems, we need to think about the data point of view. Many times, management tell the IT department, I want this system. What problem, what operational problem or capability that you want to solve or develop? So this is a very fundamental view before we even talk about data. And it's important that when we look at implementing new systems, we need to have the data view.
Okay. So let me summarize it. Okay. นะครับวันนี้คุณคัทเบิร์ตเขาก็มาคุยอันนี้ก็คือปูเบสิกนะครับว่าในการมองระบบ IT เนี่ยนะครับอย่างขั้นต่ำเนี่ยก็ต้องดู3ด้านนะครับขั้นแรกก่อนคือ process view นะครับความจริงก็คือ process view คือไหนๆจะทำ IT แล้วเนี่ยก็คือว่ามันต้องมีการเปลี่ยนแปลงนะครับส่วนใหญ่ปกติที่เขาทำกันก็คือว่าก็จะมี process improvement เกิดขึ้นก็คือการปรับปรุงกระบวนการนะครับด้วย IT ขึ้นมานะครับซึ่งอันนี้จะเป็น classic case เหมือนกันเมืองไทยเนี่ยหลายองค์กรนะครับก็คือทำงานยังไงใช้ IT กูก็อยากทำงานอย่างนั้นอ่ะรู้จักใช่ไหมแต่พอทำมาเสร็จแล้วเป็นไงมันก็เหมือนเดิมมันไม่มี impact นะครับซึ่งนี่อันนี้คลาสสิกมากนะครับเพราะถือว่ามันมีปัญหาเยอะนะครับนี้เพิ่มเติมให้หน่อยแล้วกันนะครับอย่างผมทำงานเนี่ยไม่รู้ว่าตัวเขาเรียกว่าอะไรนะaccount code นะครับ account code เนี่ยระบบพวก ERP เนี่ย account code นี่คือโครงสร้างฐานข้อมูลของถ้าคุณไม่ปรับ account code เนี่ยนะครับการทำงานจะแบบเดิมเลยนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นจริงๆแล้วต้องดีไซน์ตั้งแต่ตอนต้นว่าอยากจะเปลี่ยนอะไรนะครับก็จะอยู่ที่ process view นะครับทีนี้มาตัวที่2นะครับก็คือตรง people view เนี่ยนะครับ people view เนี่ยจริงๆก็คือทำความเข้าใจนะครับทำความเข้าใจว่าคนเขาต้องการอะไรจะเกิดอะไรขึ้นกับเขานะครับบางครั้งเนี่ยงานอาจจะเยอะขึ้นเพราะแต่ก่อนไม่เคยมีข้อมูลไงพอตอนหลังที่มีข้อมูลต้องคีย์เพิ่มมากขึ้นนะครับก็ต้องเข้าไปคุยว่าจะต้องไปช่วยยังไงกันนะครับแล้วอีกอันหนึ่งที่เมื่อวานนี้คุยกันไอ้ตรงนี้ leadership จะมาเพราะว่าบางครั้งเนี่ยพอข้อมูลเริ่มมีแล้วนะครับมันต้องมีคนช่วยทุบโต๊ะหรือใช่ไหมช่วยทุบโต๊ะว่าโอเคตกลงเอาแบบนี้นะจะทำงานกันแบบนี้หลังจากทำระบบแล้วนะครับซึ่งตัวนี้เกี่ยวข้องทั้ง process view แล้วก็ people view เลยนะครับถ้าคุณได้หัวโต๊ะในการทำงานที่แบบทุกคนเดี๋ยวคุณตกลงกันไปนะตกลงกันได้แล้วบอกผมแล้วกันว่าทำยังไง อันนี้เหนื่อยเลยนะฮะถ้าเกิดได้นายแบบนี้นะครับแต่ซึ่งเราจะเจอเยอะนะในที่ประชุมเนี่ยคุณคุยกันแล้วกันแต่เพราะชีวิตจริงเนี่ยบางครั้งมันต้องตกลงนะครับแล้วต้องทุบโต๊ะเลยว่าเป็นยังไงนะครับว่าโอเคเราทำอย่างนี้เพราะอะไรนะครับซึ่งถ้าเป็นภาครัฐเนี่ยท้ายสุดผมไม่จะได้ว่าสุดท้ายก็ต้องมาดูว่าอะไรประชาชนได้อะไรหรือเซอร์วิสที่เราให้กับใครของระบบข้อมูลนั้นเป็นยังไงนะครับนี่คือ people view นะครับแล้วก็คราวนี้เขาเข้ามา data view ซึ่งวันนี้เดี๋ยวคงจะขยายความตรงนี้เยอะนะครับก็คือว่าโอเคแล้วข้อมูลที่เราจะเก็บมันมีอะไรเราเอาไปใช้ประโยชน์อะไรนะครับไม่ใช่ว่าเก็บไปแล้วตอนหลังอยากได้เพิ่มใช่ไหมอยากได้เพิ่มนะครับแล้วเพิ่มแล้วยังไงไม่ใช่อยู่ๆจะไปเพิ่มมาได้ยังไงก็ต้องคิดตั้งแต่ตอนต้นเพราะฉะนั้นพอตรง data view มันก็กลับมาที่ process view หรือกลับเข้ามาที่จุดประสงค์ว่าอะไรนะทำระบบนี้มาเพื่อจะตอบโจทย์อะไรและข้อมูลที่จะได้มานั้นมันเป็นไงมันเอามาตอบโจทย์ได้ไหมนะครับตรงนี้ก็เลยกลายเป็นเรื่องสำคัญที่ออกมานะครับแล้วเขาก็พูดต่อนะครับว่า typical system ที่มีก็มี operation IT app อะไรอย่างนี้นะครับตรงนี้คือ input ที่เข้ามานะครับแล้วเขาก็จะไฮไลท์อีกตัวหนึ่งว่ามีเว็บเซอร์วิสด้วยเดี๋ยวนี้ก็เป็นอีก input ที่เข้ามาจากด้านนั้นนะครับสองตัวนั้นเพียงแต่ว่าไอ้ด้านซ้ายเนี่ยน่าจะเป็นฝั่งเราคีย์เข้าไปเองนะครับเหมือนที่เราทำทุกวันนี้นะก็เหมือนกับถ้าเปรียบเทียบเป็นเซเว่นก็คืออะไรนะไอ้แคชเชียร์ถูกไหมคีย์เข้าไปปุ๊บข้อมูลก็ไหลเข้าไปในระบบนะถ้าเกิดเป็นเว็บเซอร์วิสก็คือลูกค้าคีย์สั่งออเดอร์แคตตาล็อกปึ้งเข้าไปนะครับมันก็เข้ามา2ตัวนะครับแล้วก็ตัวหลักนี่ก็จะดีขึ้นนะครับรู้ไหมครับว่าตัวหลักนี้ทำไมจริงๆลึกๆบริษัทชอบเพราะอะไรครับลูกค้าไงคีย์ผิดห้ามบ่นลูกค้าคีย์เองนึกออกใช่ไหมผมเคยซื้อตั๋วเครื่องบินเนี่ยผิดวันนึกออกใช่ไหมก็คือต้องอะไรจ่ายค่าเสียให้ถึงพันเปลี่ยนวันมันด่าไม่ถูกเลยคือประมาณว่าขี่ปุ๊บขับรถไปจองไปไงดีนี้ระบบมันดีมากขับรถไปโหปุ๊บเสือตัวไม่ต้องไปด่วนปุ๊บกดวันผิดนั่นแหละนึกออกใช่ไหมป้างเสร็จแล้วเราจะด่าใครล่ะก็แหมขอความเห็นใจหน่อยว่าเพิ่งจองไปเมื่อ1 นาทีที่ผ่านมานี้เองอะไรอย่างเงี้ยนึกออกใช่ไหมไม่สำเร็จนึกออกไหม1,000 บาทนะครับโอเคก็ครั้นั้นเองแล้วก็คุยถึงเรื่องของคลาวด์เรื่องของอะไรซึ่งเป็นเทคโนโลยีที่เข้ามามีบทบาทมากนะครับในการที่เรา access ข้อมูลได้ตลอดเวลานะครับโอเค sorry for a long but
Thank you. But I thought that it would be good because, to be frank, this data problem is common in many countries. People forget about the value of data. And it is important for us to understand what is data and what is the value. And really, for government, the data is actually the national asset. So just a quick review of the concept. You all know what is data, right? Bits of information. But when you organize data, you become what? Information. And how we organize data is actually very fundamental because it's this information that helps us to capture and solve problems when we build our IT systems. And when you look at information, you get knowledge. So what is knowledge? Can someone tell me what is knowledge? Sorry, I need me to think a little bit more. What is knowledge? What's the difference between information and knowledge? Okay, so I give an example. There was this story. This CEO who was an expert of a call center. He wanted to build a very powerful call center that can help all the operators in the company to answer questions from customers. So he was very proud of the system. So he was asking, who is the most experienced expert who can use the system? So they went around and they found out that it was this old man. A 60-year-old man was able to answer many questions from customers. So he was a bit disappointed. So he asked, can I find out who's the second best person who can make use of the system? So you know what they found out? It was a person sitting next to him. So when you look at knowledge, it's about information plus experience. And this is something very fundamental. And if you have experienced people who know data very well, you can create insights. And that's where whatever action you make, you know that you're informed to take certain action. And this is really how data helps the organization when we look at from the whole life cycle into the assets of the organization. So we need to think about how we collect data, how we analyze data, how we understand data, and how do we make use of data for decision making. So can I get you all to think from a data view? How do we use data to make informed decisions? But we must first think of capturing data. So that's why I'm suggesting that we have data in our minds, how we capture data and manage data in a life cycle, how we collect, how we analyze. This is very important. Once you can digest this, it'll be easier for me to go through the whole stage of what we call the data continuum. Anybody has any questions this time? What data problems you have? I hear from people that we have a lot of data, but we don't know how to make use of the data. So I need to ask you a fundamental question in the first place. Are you all capturing the right data? Do you all know what data problems you want to solve? What information that you want to use for decision making? So if you have these problems in your organization, it means that people put data as second-hand, as secondary. We always focus a lot on IT and automation. In fact, if you know what data you want, what problems you want to solve, and if you know how to capture this information when you design, you get your requirements and design your IT system, then you will solve all these problems. And some of you have shared with me that this is a common problem that you want to answer. So that's why I'm suggesting now, before you think on automation, you think on the build IT system, you must ask what data you need and how can you make use of this data. So that's why I'm suggesting a data point of view. Okay, again, another session, but I will just quickly summarize. What I'm trying to say is that we are influenced by technologies for the last 30 years. And many of these technologies have changed the way companies and governments work. But my question, are these technologies useful or are these hype? You all know it's hype, right? Everybody is interested, but they don't know how to use it. And one common example is big data. So when people are looking at big data, then they always ask the first question, how do we get the data? So what is big data actually? So before we start, I want to give you a context of data. When we look at data, there are three types of data. Number one is structured data. So what are structured data? You know, you have your ID card, right? You have all the data inside, the formats and all that. Those are called structured data. They're like records with your format and the length of the record. So those are called structured data. What is semi-structured data? Okay, this one is a little bit new for some of you. Semi-structured data means that I can capture structured information and a little bit of unstructured information like text and all that. And some examples are called XML and JSON, JavaScript notation. Means that we can capture unstructured and structured information. You got it? So XML is how different systems exchange data with each other. And it's one of the best ways of data exchange between organizations or even among government agencies or within government agencies or government departments. So just take note of this, XML and JSON. And the last one is structured data. So what is an example of structured data? Can someone tell me? Can I just pick a person and ask? Those of you I know. So what example of unstructured data? Example? Information Facebook, unstructured. Objects, what examples? Sorry? Okay, voice, audio, text, unstructured text, and video. So these are unstructured data. And the amount of data that's coming out is tremendous now. In fact, some of them are very heavy. And do you have systems that capture unstructured data in your organization? How many of you have IT systems that capture unstructured data in your organization? Nobody. Okay, never mind. So I just want to just walk through me with this simple list I want to share with you. We all know that we need a database, correct? And the database technology has evolved so much that the latest database can do a lot of analytics easier compared to the older databases. The databases now can capture unstructured information. That means you can capture data as well as voice. So that means your system is like a multimedia system, for example. But one of the key technologies that really changed the world was in the early 90s, where the concept of a data warehouse came about. What is the data warehouse? A data in a warehouse. Okay, kidding. When you look at data warehouse, it means that it's a new approach and technology that is designed to do what? To do analysis, data analysis and reporting. But what's the difference between a data warehouse and your operational system? When computing power improved, a lot of people thought that you have your database with your operational system, you try and generate reports or SQL, structured query languages on the database to actually extract information for reporting. Then you know what happened? When you run some of these reports, the operational system slows down. So as a result, they realized that, okay, we need another system. So the data warehouse tells you that you need another database to extract data from the operational system for all your different operational systems for reporting. And that's where they have tools like online analytical processing, tools like executive information systems, tools like BI, business intelligence, to do the reporting. So, how many of y'all know this concept? What is BI, what is OLAP, and what is EIS? Some of you know. Okay, who knows? Put up your hands. So I'll give you a very quick one. Business intelligence means that it allows you to do your own questions on the database, which is in the data warehouse. It helps you to do it yourself, or there's a tool to help you make queries. It improves efficiency in analysis and reporting. Then online analytical processing is another tool that to help you to do queries. And EIS is actually an executive information system to generate reports for management. So what is key in all this data? Your data must be structured. Next, we talk about big data. Okay, big data is a. Okay, I have a lot of emotion with big data. I find that vendors are talking the value of data, but in the first place, how are you going to collect the data? So there are three main sources of data for the big data. First one is from where? From sensors. You all know that sensors collect data, a lot of data, every now and then, frequency. And for those companies that do a lot of transactions, it is the source of information for a big data system. Another source of big data is from your operational system. And third, it is from public data. There's a lot of public data now that you can make use of this information. So my question to you, if you're going to do your own big data system, where are you going to get the data from in the first place? So big data to me is hype. Unless you're large enough, you have a lot of systems, IT systems, and you are going to make use of sensors, you want to do a lot of analysis, then big data is useful. So I'm saying from a very layman point of view. And you all know what is data analytics, right? How many of you all know what is data analytics? We'll come to that and I'll explain that later. And when we look at mobile apps and smartphones, how many of you have smartphones now? All of you? If you do not bring a phone today, how would you feel?
Have to go back home and get it.
So the interesting now is that your smartphone is like your PC or your notebook. Not as powerful, but it can do a lot of processing. And the question is, with my smartphone and with these smart technologies, mobile technologies, can I use this technology to reach out to my operational system and retrieve data from my operational system? So, in fact, it was the mobile and smartphone technologies that have changed the world. And that's why we hear this concept of what? Smart cities. And about being smart. So can someone answer me? I know it's a tough question. What is smart? What is smart technology? What is smart? Sorry? Can do many things? Okay. But what is the key to smart? Why do people call it smart? Why do you call it a smartphone? Besides doing many things, the sensors are the ones that actually help you. And what I'm trying to relate now is Ashok talked a lot about smart yesterday. The car, the Formula One car, the sensors. So it's this sensor information that becomes big data. And for those companies that do a lot of huge transactions, especially from ERP systems. You all know what is ERP? Enterprise Resource Planning. So these are systems that help big companies to manage their operations, to do billing, to do supply chain, logistics. And they are very expensive as well. So I'll just quickly move on from here. You take notes of these points, and we'll answer that in more detail, some of the questions that you have in your mind. Okay, I'm going back to basics. What do you see there? Can someone tell me what you see? What form is that? Can someone tell me what form is that? It's a credit card application form. Okay, the answer is on the right. But why am I putting the form there for you all to see? It's a form for what? To fill up your application details to apply for credit card, right? And you notice I've categorized 3 types of data there. First, we call it people data. People data means that it's your personal information, especially your ID card, your address, your ID card and your name. Then I put there land data. What is land data? It means your addresses. Your home address, your residential address. Then we put that company data. Means the company that you belong with or belong to. So important thing is that how do you enter data into your IT system? You have application form, you enter data, right? Most of you do that, right? Then when you capture those data from the customer, do you capture everything or what is useful? So I ask a question. When you have data to collect, you capture what is useful or you capture everything? Okay, this is also a fundamental problem. If I capture everything, do I make use of the data? So I'm putting this question to your minds to think, what is the data that we want to capture for what? For decision making. And now, yesterday I should talk about service delivery, public service delivery. How do we make it convenient to capture data from the citizens and provide a better service? So it's all about having data about citizens. So this is a manual application. So after they collect this form, what do you think they'll go back and do? What happens to this form? They'll go back to the customer service department, they'll enter the data, right? So you have 2 types of address. Must the address format be consistent? It has to be consistent. Why? If you leave the data if you leave the address in free format, are you able to make sense of the address information? No. So we must be very clear what's the house number, what is the floor, what's the street name, what's the building name, for example. So we really need to think about organizing the data, and that's where the data formats come in. So I share this little story with you. So this company, they built the first system to improve the operations. They adopted a certain format to capture the data. Very happy operations. We had improvement in operations. Then they needed a second system. But you know what happened? The second system was for different use. But they needed the personal data and needed address information. And you know what was the problem? They did it in a different format. So if I want to exchange data between these 2 systems, can we exchange data to make use of data? No. The format is incompatible. We have to what? We have to transform the data. So go back to your organization and ask yourselves, we build a few systems. Are the data elements or data structure, organized data in your departmental systems, are they standardized? If they're not standardized, what happens? You have to get people to format and reconfigure the data or transform the data. So this is a big problem when we look at data. So one of the lessons learned is that we must make sure that data is useful so that we can make decisions from. The data has to be standardized and formatted. Go back to your own government departments or private organizations. Do we have data problems like that in the first place? Do you have? If you cannot get data from decision making, means you have a data standardization problem. Okay, so I just want to set the tone for understand data. And the key when you want to manage data and you capture data is form simplification. Capture what you need. And for those of you who have actually data about the customer, or about the citizens, do you want the citizens to enter the data again? No. In Thailand, when you go and ask for services in the banks, do they ask you to fill up the customer information again? They do, right? So that is where the mindset change has to come in. In Singapore, you have an account with a bank, whether is it a bank account, savings account, you want to apply for a credit card. They just ask you to show IC, but they have the data in their system. They just retrieve the data. And better still, they don't even ask you for a form. They fill up the data online for you. And when you verify, you see the data on the screen, you confirm. Some of them will make you sign an electronic signature on the pad. So it's how we manage data. So we have to move from the paper paradigm to the electronic paradigm. This is key. Okay, now I'm with the real stuff now. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I'm going to talk for next 45 minutes or so to make you understand what is data about. And we'll talk about this data continuum.
Okay, can I break you a little bit? So ก็ conclusion ของเขาง่ายๆนะครับที่เขาเอาแบบฟอร์มมาให้ดูนะครับแล้วเขาก็จะถามตอนท้ายอยู่นิดหนึ่งว่าไอ้แบบฟอร์มตัวเนี้ยใช่ไหมเอาไปช่วยตัดสินใจอะไรนั่นคือสิ่งที่เราจะต้องพยายามตอบคำถามตัวแล้วว่าพูดง่ายๆคือข้อมูลที่เราขอเนี่ยมันเอาไปทำอะไรนะไหนที่มันเกินไหนที่มันขาดนะครับแล้วก็ยกตัวอย่างที่ดีมากของเขาก็คือว่าที่สิงคโปร์เขาจะเปิดเครดิตการ์ดที่เป็นไงแค่บอกแค่บัตรประชาชนเท่านั้นเองแค่ยืนยันว่าตัวคุณเป็นตัวคุณน่ะแล้วเดี๋ยวเขาแบงก์มันกรอกข้อมูลให้เลยเพราะมีทุกอย่างหมดแล้วนึกออกไหมแต่ของเราเป็นไงเซ็นอยู่นั่นแหละเซ็นเข้าเซ็นออกนะครับโอเคครับ Cuthbert you can continue
Okay. So now, I just want to give you this simple framework so that you can understand what is data all about and what is the relationship of the different stages of data. So the first area which I'll cover later, just to give you a brief overview, is called data generation. So it means how we generate data. And this data generation is mainly used in the statistics paradigm. How do we create data so that we can capture this data from our statistics survey to answer our own hypothesis? So it's about generating data, and this is mainly used in the statistics paradigm. And the other part is when you build IT systems, right? How do you test the IT systems? So when you design an IT system and before you implement, you must test the system. So you need test data. How do you create this data, or how do you generate this data for testing the IT system? So this, when we talk about data generation, is looking at statistics and testing our systems using test data. How do we generate this test data? And for those complex systems, they spend a lot of effort testing this data. I will revisit this after this framework. Second one is data capture. Data capture is very popular because why? We capture these systems, capture this data for our IT systems. So what are examples of data capture? Can someone tell me? Besides data entry, what sorts of data capture do you have? What devices do we use? Can someone share? First one, I remember I buy the chocolate later. What is the example of data capture? Scanner. Just now, Mr. Van Dijk was sharing about, I was doing the population census for Vietnam. Previous 10 years, when they do the population census, they design all the forms, right? And people were using data entry. For the 1999 census, it took 2 years to finish the census, but first to finish the data entry, then do the analysis. 2 years. When we use the form scanning system, which I planned the specs and worked with the team, the scanning, we had to scan 80 million forms. But because we use scanners, it's a form of data capture. We recognize the data. It took us 1 year to finish the scanning, the data capture, scanning, as well as the analysis and reporting of the stats. 1 year. So 50% turnaround time in productivity. And with scanning systems, you have many form surveys that we want to do. The Statistics Office of Vietnam, GSO, has done 6 or 7 surveys, and the productivity, at least 50% each time they do it. And they are so happy now that they are trying to upgrade the system. So data capture, scanning is one. Give me another example. How many of you have a smart card? NFC. Smart card?
Yeah, you have smart card.
Yeah. You understand? I'll come to that. Just briefly, I'll explain that later. How many of you know what is data transmission? How do you transmit the data across the network? Last time, we used cable, right, to transmit data. Now we use wireless. Why is this so important now? We have a sensor. If you are going to connect wires to the sensor, is it going to be efficient? No. You are going to use different types of networks to transmit this data. So data transmission is very important. And what is important is how do you secure this data? So that's data transmission. After you transmit from the data capture source via the data transmission, you store the data into a database. We call that data storage. How do we store the data that we've captured? After you store, you want to use the data, right? How do we share this data with other agencies within your department? How do we store this data? How do we share this data? And after you get this data, how do you do analytics? How do you analyze this data? And from this analysis of data, how can it help us to look at past data for us to learn and find out what problems were there? And how do we look at the future? How do we predict the future? And the last one is called data cognification. It means with data from smart sensors, how do we learn and analyze this data using new technology such as AI technology? I'll explain this in the next few slides. Okay, I know it's still a bit iffy. Once you have diagrams, you will see better. One question. When we talk about data, is this all about data here? Are we talking about the whole continuum of the data? All the issues we talk about will be given here. But the most important part, after we have the data, how do we manage and govern the data? How do we manage the formats? Who's going to, if there's data errors, how are we going to rectify the errors? And importantly, within an organization, if you have your IT systems, when you change your data, who manages the changes? And are all these changes to your data documented? In fact, in many organizations, because they don't govern the data, they have data problems over time. Because why? Formats change, people don't know. You just enter different things. And how do you manage the capture quality? That is important. And last one, data security. How do you ensure data security across all these stages here? This is actually very fundamental. And we know now the threats about cybersecurity, cyberspace, it is very fundamental. So when you look at data, the funny thing is that it interacts with security, interacts with your IT systems, but they are really the core. Without data in your systems, you will not have anything that is useful for you to make decisions with or to take actions. Okay. Just look at this slide, but I just want to share 2 key concepts again, as I mentioned just now. How many of you have done surveys? Statistics. So before you do a survey, you must plan, right? You want to know what's your sample size, how you're going to capture this data, what problems you want to solve. So in the process, we have a survey methodology. And this survey methodology that will help us to create data is called this term data generation. So basically, it's a series of steps that you follow. And when I was with the Statistics Office, we found it very important to develop a data collection system. That means, how do you do surveys electronically? And when you do the survey, you have the format, the survey methodology, what data you want to capture, the format of the data. If you're going to do it manually, it's going to be very tedious. So if you can make this whole process electronic, then you can easily develop your own surveys. And this whole concept, when you develop survey, is called data generation, because you're developing data that you collect for your survey analysis later. So this concept of data generation means that you follow a survey methodology to capture the data that you want. Okay, that's in a nutshell what is data generation. Can someone share with me if you have a big IT system in your office that manages a lot of data? Anybody has an example that you want to share? Okay, then maybe I'll share this example. When you have a lot of data to manage, and it's a very complex system like a financial system, the core banking system of a bank, if the people were to create their own test data for core banking system, because you have many scenarios to test, how do you create the data? Not easy, right? So for those banking systems, many of them would use a testing tool to generate the test data. And this test data would help to manage all the different data scenarios. So this is where, from the IT point of view, we call this test data generation. How do you create test data? Using a tool so that you can do your testing. So this is the concept of data generation from a statistics point of view as well as from the test data point of view. Okay? So this is just overview of what data generation is. It's for statistics and for you to test for creating test data for your operations. In a nutshell, anybody has any questions?
So, I mean, Cuthbert, can you go back a little bit? So what is mean that is mean the data generation is required, in particular, during the design phase, design and test run. So if the concept is right or something?
Yeah, okay. What happens is that because there are different permutations, right? For some of the complex transactions, you may even design mathematical models to help you generate the test cases. And with these mathematical models, you basically make use of a testing tool to generate the test data. So there are different scenarios for different types of systems. And they are mainly used for those complex banking systems and those ERP systems, for those very complex ones. So basically there's a flow to it. I put the pictures inside, you all can take a look what it designs, but if for me to explain, it's going to take a while. So just see the concept simply as what is data generation.
Okay.
Okay, data capture. Look at the picture in there. It shows you all the different kinds of data capture tools. Of course, the most common, which I've not put inside, is data entry. RFID. You know what's RFID? So nowadays, if you go to a bookstore, you put the RF tag onto the bookstore. When you come out, it will blink, right? Unless you're paid for it, it allows you to go through. So you can monitor all the different kind of transactions. In Singapore's National Library Board, you borrow books from what? From using RF tag. And they will know what the books that have been borrowed. And they will know how many % of books are returned on time. You just use the RF tag, you put inside a bookshelf, you put it in, you go through this hole, you scan. And you see the RF stands that detect the RF ID, what you call it, tags, RF stand. NFC. How many of you know what is MFC? Do you have it in your phone? Near field communication. So NFC is very key now because people are looking at payments for it. Back to the smart card. There are two types of smart card. You all know what's a smart card, right? Are you familiar? For those of you who are not aware, this is a smart card. You're familiar now?
Yeah, our citizen ID is a smart card.
Oh, wonderful.
But we always feel it's stupid card.
Okay.
Because never use it.
So basically, what is the purpose of these contactless cards and all that smart cards? They are for you to do transactions. And these transactions are key if you're entitled to services. So for banks, use it for payment, credit cards, for example. And what do you capture on the smart, may I ask, what do you capture on the smart card for the citizen? The personal data.
Personal data, yes.
Okay, I want to spend a few minutes making you all think what I shared earlier on. When you want to capture data, you must make sure you know what data you want to capture, what are your data elements. And every single data element, you must have a definition. So for example, address. In the credit card example, you saw that there are two types of addresses, home address and office address. So you must be able to explain and define each element. And what is important is you must be able to define the format. How many characters is your name in Thailand here, in your ID card? You all know? How many characters is the length of a field for your name in your ID card? How many? 30.
13 number.
So credit card also 30. You want to guess what's the length of the Singapore name? What's the length of the Singapore name?
I don't know.
66 characters.
66? Okay.
You know Mauritius? You know what's the maximum length of the name field? 100 characters.
Okay.
And we went to do analysis to find out what is the largest name, and they told us that 100 characters. So it is important to have name formats, your different formats for your different fields. For example, name, date of birth. So I ask you a question now. When you capture data, do you capture it as a date field, or you capture it as a numeric field? Which is better? Why? Faster. From a processing angle, yeah, it's faster. So when you capture the numeric field, how do you do it? You put day, month, year, or year, month, day?
Year, month, day.
Year, month, day. Why?
Because you can sort things easily.
You can sort, you can deduct the differences between the date. But the new date function, if you use the date function, they can also do it for you automatically, like in Excel. Why am I talking about these date formats? We must be consistent of how we define the name, the types of field, like name, date. Because why? We want to explain to people what are these for. And when you develop new IT systems, should you follow the same format or different format? Same, right? So my question to you, go back and look at your IT systems that has been developed. Was effort spent on defining the data dictionary and data standards? And who is in charge of the data standards and formats for your system?
You mean citizen ID?
Sorry?
What do you mean? Citizen ID?
No, any in your own internal system. Who is in charge of the data dictionary to add on new fields or change the field names?
IT department?
Is it the role of the IT department? IT department already so busy looking at IT implementation. So Prof. Pontit mentioned a very important point. Should IT manage this data or somebody else? Yes, sir.
I have a question. If we try to look at the global data, and for example, like you try to get the maximum of the lake name, for the nation, probably we know it. But for the global, how we going to know the length of the maximum length of the name?
Every country is different. You have to contact the different agencies unless it's available on Google. I'm not sure, but you have to contact the national ID authorities in each country to find out. For me, I'm sharing you from personal experience because I did the projects there. Even in Vietnam, there's about 60 characters, I believe. So what I'm trying to do is to make you think about, is the IT department the one in charge of managing the data? When we go through later, you find out that it is not the IT department. Who is it? It must be a user, an operational department. And it goes to another question. Who owns the data? It's not the IT department who owns the data. You make the IT department own the data, you focus more on the IT operations, maintenance, than the data. Okay, so think about it. This is an important point. So my question to you, for every data that you capture when you do data entry in your system, do you have full validation of the data and verification of the data? Is there validation checks in your data field? How do you know that when you enter the data is accurate? Like Singapore, we have your ID card number. We enter ID card inside. We have validation check to tell us whether the number is validated. Is it correct? Mauritius, the same. So every country will have validation rules. So do we do that for all our data? It's not just capturing the data. How you verify and validate the data? Then the next point is that if there are data errors in the system, how do you correct the data in your system? So to share a personal experience with you, we were doing the national ID card for Mauritius, and they wanted Singapore's experience because they told us that because 30 years, 40 years ago, when they did the data capture for the manual ID card and they converted into electronic system, the data entry for the system conversion was very poorly done. As a result, there were expected 15 to 20% data errors. And because they asked Singapore government to do a national ID card, and they wanted Singapore's government experience, how do we clean up the data in the card? So I ask you a question. If your ID card got data error, what must you do? You must go back there, produce the hard copy document to change the data, right? So they discovered a lot of data entry errors. So how to actually clean up the data? We spent 1 year cleaning up the data. We spent 1 year to develop the system, another year to issue the ID card. We spent 1.5 years cleaning up the data. And it was a tremendous exercise because it was done by 2 groups of people. One group of people to clean up all those data that are wrong, data entry error, but the document is correct. So we clean it internally. And some fields were left blank. So how do we clean up the system? So it took a massive exercise to clean up the system. And the other second effort was to what? Get people to do data entry for those records that were not entered. So I'm just trying to highlight the concept of data cleansing.
When you do the clean up data, you use like a machine learning or the artificial intelligence, or you use the man-made?
Okay, that's a very good question. We had to do scripts. We had a lot of testing scripts to define and detect errors. There were data cleansing tools, but the Mauritius government felt that it was too expensive to do data cleansing. So they felt that we get people and we extract the data and do checks on the data by checking against the formats and the rules. Okay, ISDN is actually for books. Every book that you issue is a book number. So for the Mauritius ID card, it was their own internal data standards that were not fully formalized. So we had to go in and have to do a data governance study to define all the standards for all the data. Yes. Yes. Correct. Yeah, that's a check digit. Correct. So example of validation check, this lady here sharing is to do a validation check is the ISBN number. Thank you. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do a validation by the person before the ID card was created? So in terms of all the data elements that were captured, you have a printout and have the person look at it and say, yes, this is me, this is my information. Please go ahead and issue an ID card.
Okay, there were the 2 issues there. Number 1, they were moving from a paper-based card or a simple electronic printed card into a smart card with laser engraving. So the card was very secure. And the problem was that the government didn't want the citizen to come twice. So after... Yeah, convert the data. Correct. Okay, there was also another reason. the biggest concern in Mauritius was data fraud. People take another person's identity and go and buy property. And when we were doing the data cleansing study, we discovered 50 people with the same ID card number. And we also found out, I think about 96 people with more than one ID card. So that's why they had a data quality issue, and they felt that they wanted Singapore government to help. And the other one was the conversion, as he was sharing. When the person comes to check ID, what is the best way? Where do you deploy your centers in the country? How do you make sure that people can easily have convenience to convert the ID card? Thank you. Any other points on data capture? So what I'm trying to highlight is that data capture is key. If we don't have data, then you have a big problem. And for big data, they talk about having big data. My question is, unless you have a lot of data, unless you have a lot of sensors in an organization, then start thinking of big data. Use technology to solve a problem. Don't use, use, have a problem, define a problem very clearly and use technology to solve the problem. Don't get technology to try and look for problems to solve. So in my opinion, if you're looking at big data, you got no data, you're looking for problems to solve. And technology is not useful in doing that.
โอเคจริงๆเขาพูดถึงเรื่อง data capture เนี่ยนะครับก็เป็นเรื่องที่คลาสสิกนะครับคือประเด็นง่ายๆก็คือว่าเขาบอกว่าเขาจะมีวิธีของการ capture data ใช่ไหมครับก็จะมี data capture form ใช่ไหมอันนี้ถ้าคนกรอกด้วยมือแล้วคนไปคีย์อันนี้เป็นไงโอกาส error จะสูงแล้วก็จะนำมาสู่ data cleansing อะไรที่เขาบอกจะต้องกลับแก้จะต้องทำอะไรแมนนวลกันเยอะนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นถ้าเป็นไปได้เนี่ยมันก็ควรจะใช้วิธีอื่นหรือใช้เทคโนโลยีที่มันจะ accurate สูงกว่านะครับแต่ในกระบวนการนั้นน่ะถึงมันก็ต้องมีกระบวนการที่บอกว่า data verification กับ validation นะครับอย่างเช่นเมื่อกี้มีพี่คนหนึ่งเขาบอก ISDN มันมีการเช็ค internal ก็คือมีตัวเลขกับบวกกันมาผมไม่แน่ใจนะผมไม่มีความรู้ว่า13หลักเรามีเช็คหรือเปล่าคือถ้ามีมันก็ตั้งแต่แล้วคุณกรอกผิดนึกออกใช่ไหมตัวเลขผิดหรือเปล่าก่อนที่มันจะไปไหนแต่ถ้าออกแบบระบบมาดีก็จะมีตัวช่วยนะครับว่ามีวิธีการเช็คง่ายๆที่ดีตรงนั้นเลยนะครับหรือจริงๆประเทศไทยเนี่ยถ้าเราสามารถจะ access ฐานข้อมูลของประเทศได้ก็ดีเนาะคือแค่คีย์เข้าไปชื่อมันกลับมามันตรงกันหรือเปล่านะครับก็คงจะช่วยทำให้เราออกแบบระบบได้ดีขึ้นนะครับจริงๆเนี่ยอันนี้เราก็คุยกันมานานแล้วว่าไอ้ฐานข้อมูลบัตรประชาชนนะน่าจะให้พับสาธารณะอย่างเราเนี่ยใช้ได้มากขึ้นใช่ไหมครับที่ตัวอย่างไปถึงเนี่ยก็ยื่นบริการไปนะครับจะได้ตรวจสอบได้แล้วนะครับอย่างน้อยก็มีประโยชน์นะครับแล้วมาอีกที validation ก็คือดูความถูกต้องในเชิงคุณภาพของข้อมูลนะครับก็ต้องมานั่งดูทีอย่างที่เขาบอกเนี่ยพวกฟิลมีข้อมูล blank หรือเปล่าว่างหรือเปล่าต่างๆเหล่านั้นนะครับแต่ว่าทั้งหลายทั้งปวงเนี่ยที่เขาไฮไลท์มาก็คือว่าก่อนที่จะไปถึง Big Data หรือใหญ่อะไรตรงเนี้ยมันต้องทำให้ข้อมูลให้มั่นใจว่ามี error น้อยที่สุดนะครับแล้วซึ่งเขาก็ย้ำอีกทีว่าไอ้พวก automation ต่างๆนะครับ automation ต่างๆเนี่ยมันจะช่วยลดความผิดพลาดตรงนี้นะครับนะว่าเป็นยังไงนะครับพวกเซนเซอร์มันก็ชัวร์แล้วตำแหน่งมันชัดนะครับส่วนใหญ่ข้อมูล people นี่แหละนะครับเป็นข้อมูลที่เป็นจะมีความ error ที่สุดนะครับซึ่งอันเนี้ยก็คงว่าเป็นคลาสสิกเพียงแต่ว่ารัฐบาลก็น่าจะช่วยได้นะครับในเรื่องของการที่เปิดให้โอกาสมา verify คือถ้าถามผมรัฐบาลเนี่ยต้องเป็นคน clean data ทั้งหมดว่า13ตัวชื่อรหัสนี้เป็นละนะครับแล้วที่เหลือก็อะไรประชาชนเอามาใช้ว่าโอเคคนนี้ชื่อตรงคนนี้ไม่ได้ชื่อปลอมไหมตรงกันหรือเปล่านะครับถ้าถามผมประเทศไทยมีตัวเลขที่ฐานข้อมูลที่ดีๆก็จะ1บัตรประชาชนแล้ว2อีกตัวหนึ่งที่ควรจะเปิดก็คือเลขทะเบียนรถเนาะนะเพราะว่าเลขทะเบียนรถอะไรต่างๆเหล่านี้เนี่ยมันเป็นตัวที่ cross ได้แต่เลขทะเบียนรถเราก็รู้อยู่ว่าคลาสสิกมากเลขทะเบียนก็จะซ้ำกันเพียบนะฮะก็ยังเป็นอิชชูอยู่นะครับแต่ว่าก็จะเป็นแบบนี้นะครับโอเค yes ครับครับไม่อยากจะให้อะไรครับคือพี่กำลังจะบอกว่าตอนพี่กรอกข้อมูลเนี่ยพี่ก็เมคเล่นใช่ไหมshe asked a question that when she fill the form she don't want to give she don't want to give information แล้วแต่ but I ask her แต่ว่าผมไม่เข้าใจประเด็นนี้ว่าสมมติว่าพี่อยากจะสมัครสมาชิก Tesco พี่ก็ต้องให้ข้อมูลเขาอ่ะครับอ๋อไม่เขาคิดในแง่บริษัทก็ได้สมมุติว่าพี่จะทำระบบขึ้นมาพี่ต้องคิดว่าเนี่ยพี่จะเก็บชื่อลูกค้ายังไงและอันนี้เป็นประเด็นที่ดีว่าถ้าเป็นบริษัทI discuss about if I am the company ใช่ไหมผมต้องคิดว่าอะไรพี่กลัวเพราะฉะนั้นต้องเขียนข้อความโน้ตไว้ตัวใหญ่เลยข้อมูลนี้จะไม่ถูกเอาไปใช้อะไรทั้งสิ้นถ้าได้ต้องไปแกล้งนั้นตรงนี้แล้วพยายามไปขอข้อมูลที่จำเป็นจะไม่ข้อมูลที่จำเป็นเช่นอะไรมันก็ต้องมีบัตรประชาชนแหละนึกออกไหมเพื่อจะการจะรู้ว่าคนนี้มีตัวตนเดี๋ยวเบิ้ลอีกใช่ไหมมีบัตรหลายใบเอามาลดคูปองใช่ไหมก็ต้องเข้าใจเขาตรงนั้นเหมือนกันขอจำเป็นอาจจะขอแค่ตรงนี้ถามว่า address เอาไว้ทำไมก็ไว้ส่งข้อมูลหรือถ้าไม่ได้ขอเป็นอีเมลไหมติ๊กอีเมลแล้วไม่ต้องอะไรไม่ต้องให้ที่อยู่ก็ได้แต่นั่นคือความหมายคือตรงเนี้ยเวลาที่เราต้องคอนเซิร์นแต่ถ้าเป็นผมเดี๋ยวผมจะถามเขา she asked this one she say that as a people person she don't want to fill out a lot of information so I say okay what you teach here is not she say that it's like more government but I say no it's maybe an organization maybe the private company but private company need to have customer information so I say the private company need to concern about her concern that the company will not use in the wrong way, such as state clearly that I will not sell your information, I will whatever here. Do you have any suggestion?
I have a small little section on this topic about personal data protection. A lot of people are now, because of the internet, people are concerned about the data, the personal data. So the Americans call it data privacy. The EU call it data protection. So the key is that I don't want to give my data to anybody for their purposes. If you want my data in Singapore with this law, it's talking about consent. I give you consent to use data, and I know what you're using the data for. So this is under a whole area of personal data protection, and this is a huge topic in itself. But there must be laws now by the government in different countries to manage personal data, and this is a huge concern.
So I think this is a very important point, and Bert was very right when he said that this is being dealt as part of data protection and data privacy. So I'll give you two examples. The best example is actually from the European Union, which has a general data protection regulation, GDPR. This regulation will get into force in March next year, 2018. But what it does is that it transfers the ownership of data to the individual. So companies have to request the individual for data, and the individual has full control and ownership of data. So that's one way of dealing with it, and that's the European way. A country like India has done it somewhat differently. So what India has done is they created an India stack. It's called an India stack. Basically, it's software where you have control over your data, and you can release data depending on the requirement. So you have full control. That data is with you, and you can actually control the release of the data using that India stack, which is software too. A third approach is what Estonia is doing, which is also very interesting. So what Estonia has done is that it has used blockchain to actually have medical records of individuals on a blockchain. So the blockchain, the technology is that there is a private key. So the person whose health records are on that blockchain has a private key, and only that person can release that data. And when they release, they know exactly how that data is being used and who is accessing that data. So I feel that there are trends which are on technology side and also on regulation, which are going in the direction of ownership of data.
โอเคเมื่อกี้ที่พี่พูดเนี่ยดีเลยเพราะว่าอะไรตอนนี้แสดงเห็นถึงว่าอะไรประเทศไทยอ่ะเราเนี่ยไม่มี regulation ไม่มีกฎหมายที่คือที่กฎหมายของว่ามีนะแต่ enforce เนี่ยนึกออกใช่ไหมคือบังคับใช้นี่เป็นยังไงซึ่งอันนี้ก็จะเป็นโครงสร้างพื้นฐานที่เราไม่มีแล้วมันทำให้ต่อยอด งั้นมันบริษัทที่อยากจะทำ Big Data นู่นนั่นนี่หรูหราเนี่ยมันทำไม่ได้นึกออกไหมครับซึ่งอันนี้ก็เป็นโน้ตที่ดีสำหรับหน่วยงานภาครัฐที่อยู่ตรงนี้นะครับครับผม
ค่ะพอดีขอพูดเป็นภาษาไทยนะคะพอดีได้ประชุมกับคณะกรรมการบูรณาการฐานข้อมูลเพื่อการบริการประชาชนนะคะในส่วนของภาครัฐเนี่ยก็มีว่าเหมือนกับมีนโยบายมีกฎเกณฑ์อยู่ของกระทรวงมหาดไทยนะคะว่าข้อมูลอะไรที่แต่ละกระทรวงที่เขาเอาไปใช้เนี่ยหน่วยงานที่เขาขอใช้เนี่ยเขาสามารถใช้ได้เฉพาะที่เกี่ยวข้องกับงานเขาเท่านั้นเขาจะไม่เปิดหมดนะคะข้อมูลที่เราส่งให้มหาดไทยเขาก็จะแบบดูความจำเป็นของเราเขามีการวิเคราะห์ค่ะอันนี้เขามีเป็นนโยบาย
ครับนี่ก็เป็นครับก็เป็นแชร์ให้ดีแต่อันนี้เขาห่วงเรื่องของให้เอกชนให้เอกชนไปทำอะไรต่อคล้ายๆกับว่าเหมือนกับเราจำเป็นต้องกรอกข้อมูลสมาชิกบัตรเนี่ยนะนี่ออกไหมแล้วเทสโก้ไปขายต่อประมาณนั้นใช่ไหม
ส่วนใหญ่พวกเอกชนอย่างพวกธนาคารเขาก็จะมีใบให้เรากรอก
คราวนี้มันจะมีปัญหาอีกชู่หนึ่งก็คือว่าเจ้าหน้าที่ในนั้นน่ะคือเข้าใจไหมนโยบายเนี่ยไม่ขายหรอกเจ้าหน้าที่เนี่ยไปดึงข้อมูลมา I talking about data security which may be a topic tomorrow because I say that the bank has policy the government has policy we not what can I say release the information but the personnel dump the information into the USB and sell so that's the issue. But actually, she complained. Basically, it's really classic. That she say, once she give information, now somebody call her. You want insurance? You want credit card? Blah, 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 and then very bothersome. Okay, but I think we did touch a good point that we see the weakness in Thailand. You know, we got everybody want to use big data, but it's starting from their customer don't want to give information to them. Okay.
Should promote ethics.
Just to quickly summarize, because of this, there are trend now for many countries to start their own data protection commission.
Yeah.
India has started. Singapore, Malaysia, and Philippines have their own data protection commission, and many of them are actually under the IT government agency.
โอเค so ก็เคลียร์นะครับเรื่องนี้นะครับเรื่อง verification เนี่ยคือมันต้องเคลียร์ก่อนไม่งั้นข้อมูลจะไปต่อไม่ได้โอเค you next
I will talk about the data security piece related to personal data in the last part of the continuum. I think you're asking good questions. So transmission is pretty straightforward. It talks about how data gets transmitted from the source to one agency or multiple agencies.And when we look at data transmission, what is important is that you must make sure that your data is secure. And whether you use, there are different types of networks that help you to transmit this data. For example, the city metropolitan network, the campus network. For those of you who are from universities, you have a campus network and wireless networks. So the key is that how, when your data gets transferred over a wireless area network, how do we ensure that it's secure?And it's not hackable. So key is that when you capture data from the source, how do you transmit it in a safe and secure manner? That's what data transmission is about. Okay, it's more of a technical wireless transmission that people should be concerned about. How many of you heard about the Wi-Fi security flaw? You ever heard about it a few weeks back? So if you have a wireless network at home, you try and get your vendor to have a patch to patch up your wireless router.Otherwise, it may be hacked. But for private individuals, I don't think they'll go after. They'll probably go after the big organizations. So the key point in transmission is that how do you transmit data when you capture at source over the network to your database? And why data transmission is becoming very important now is because of sensors. Do you know that when you talk about sensors, they are the biggest chunk of flaws in the whole entire transmission? Because.Many of these wireless sensors are not secure. In order for them to be cheap, they are not very secure. And for governments who want to implement smart cities or such initiatives, you must always think about how do you manage the transmission. That means even if you use wireless devices, many governments like Singapore, we want to control the firmware so that we can make sure that the data transmission is secure.You buy off-the-shelf generic wireless devices or even sensors, these are issues to think about. So we may say that it's very, very easy, but it is, the sensors are a single point of failure that can threaten your whole entire system. So this is something that Singapore is looking a lot about. How do you ensure and secure the data transmission? Okay, so this is quite straightforward. Any questions from the technical point of view?
I think it's no questions for that time. Yeah.
Okay, data storage. So this is the very, very interesting part, because how you store the data is very important. And in many countries, for many governments, when they secure the data into the database, they always ensure that for those highly sensitive data, it must be in a secured database. And what is important is that if we do not have enough space in our file server, we have a lot of data to store. Where should we store? So there's this technology called storage area networks, where you can store huge amounts of data, especially big data. And the data storage is actually very key, because the type of database you use will depend on whether you can handle big data. Because for big data, it requires new technologies to handle big data. And it has to be able to handle different kinds of data, structured, unstructured data, and even semi-structured data. So this is an important element. And for those of you who are interested in doing big data, you should think of databases such as Hadoop and those from SAP and Oracle, where they can handle huge data, huge big data storage. The biggest challenge always is big data cheap? How many of you think what's the lowest cost for big data? We always talk about big data. What is the cost of a big data solution? Is it in the hundreds of thousands, or is it in the millions of dollars? Millions of dollars. And as we know now, the technology implementation is so not straightforward. It requires huge data storage. And if you're going to handle sensitive data, you should look at it being secure, and importantly, the kinds of technology that you want to use. So data storage is a very important element in the whole entire life cycle. So we need to think of the challenges, which is, do you want to go after proprietary solutions, or you want to go after open source solutions? Open source solutions could be cheaper, but there are always trade-offs. So data storage is a big element in how we want to manage data. And we all know now that operational databases will store operational data. Data storage will provide different storage needs for data analytics and big data systems. Are we clear about that? So this is also another element. So we see the spectrum now from capture, transmission, storage. So my question to you now, when you talk about storage, can you also look at file servers? Can file servers be used as storage? Not databases. Databases, you have a database management system to organize the data. Can we use file servers as something for storage? How many of them will use file servers to store data? Or you think a database management system is more important? Anybody has any comments? File server as a file storage repository. The other one is using a database management system. So my question, which is a safer bet? Using a file repository or a database management system?
For personal use, I use file system.
Yes.
But for the database, operation system is have to be database, right?
So something for people to note. When you purchase IT systems, some of them, to save costs, they do not use a database management system or database. They actually use a file repository, and they use the application system to link to the files.
Oh. Okay.
So take note when you look at IT systems. If they're cheap, means that the way they handle it is a bit different. So just take note of this. I've seen users make a fundamental mistake because it's a cheap system, and when they want to migrate the data and migrate it out of the system, challenges that you may want to be aware. That is also an issue. Yes, you're right. And many of these systems are actually file document management systems. So it's something for you to take note. Correct. There's also a performance issue. So can I ask a very simple question to you? You made that point. What is your expected performance access? 3 seconds, 5 seconds, or 10 seconds? Since we talk about storage. To access your data, your record, what is your expected performance? 3 seconds, 5 seconds, or 10 seconds?
1 second.
Faster is better, but there's also a cost consideration. If you are looking at 1 to 3 seconds, it is real-time performance management systems that you are looking at. Something that will be a cost into your hardware requirements. If it's 10 seconds, so the next question I'm going to ask. So if your performance is concerned, can you use a cloud system?
Even worse.
Huh?
It worse.
So now let me bring the cloud part here. Cloud, because the storage is where? It's not in your premises, it's actually on the internet. And for governments, there's a big issue about data sovereignty. If you're going to look at Amazon, for example, if your country and your data is in the US, would you be happy about it? No, right? Because there's a data sovereignty issue. So for example, there was a data protection solution company. They moved their solution from Amazon to Singapore. Why? To improve performance and also to keep the laws under Singapore's laws, which is safer, and resolve a data sovereignty issue. So this is something that you need to think about as well. Are you looking at cloud storage? Is a subscription model, so it's cheaper. But does the cloud provider have their data center in Singapore? So to share with you, in Singapore, Amazon has come in. A few of the cloud providers have come into Singapore. Something to think about.
Just to share with you that in Thailand, most cloud service is outside the country because they also that part of this maybe we still have a military government or something. So they are afraid of what you say. One day people will go and shut down their server or something like that. So I talk to the Amazon, I talk to the Googles, I talk to the Microsoft. They don't bring cloud service in Thailand, not in the short term. Yeah.
So data alternative for government to create their own government cloud within Thailand. Then you at least address many of the data storage challenges. Because you have economies of scale. We have that in Singapore. And many of the more developed countries have that.
Yeah, most of Google is in Singapore.
Okay, can I move on? Okay, data sharing. This is interesting and I think not so easy, although a lot of people think it's easy. How to share data. So maybe let's talk about the banking example first. You know the banks, their data sharing within the banks is very easy. Because why? There are a lot of standardized data because they follow certain standards, and basically it's how they exchange data between the banking network. There's a common standard so they can exchange data. But for governments, how do you share data? Say, for example, I have the tax agency that want to exchange and share data with the statistics agency. Are we able to share that data? I mean, for the context of Thailand, if you have different agencies, like you want to share address data, how do an ID data, personal data, how do government agencies share data among each other? Or you all just use the ID card and enter the information from the ID card? Any comments?
ตอนนี้ actually right now we don't share the data as far as I know. Very few cases. Usually on government agency has own data or something like that. Very rare case they share. Right now I know they start to share the citizen ID cards, certain information, but that's a very rare case. Okay. I work on project called National Single Window. You know, it's it's difficult as they're not really open and part of also infrastructure เดี๋ยวผมขอแปลtranslate นิดนึงนะครับอันนี้เขาก็พูดถึงเรื่องสำคัญเลยนะครับเป็นเรื่องจริงๆเป็นเรื่องทางเทคนิคนะครับแต่ว่าคือมันจะมีกลไกตัวนึงคือ data sharing ก็คือพูดง่ายๆคือเราเปิดโอกาสให้ใครก็ได้มาขอเราแต่ว่าขอไม่ใช่กรอกแบบฟอร์มขอนะหมายความว่า query เข้ามาแล้วก็จะส่งข้อมูลกลับไปมีมาตรฐานมีโปรโตคอลมี service มี ASP อะไรต่างๆขึ้นมาขอนะครับแล้วเราจะเปิดยังไงกันนะครับซึ่งถ้าเป็นประเทศที่เขาแชร์ข้อมูลกันมันก็จะดึงได้นะครับแต่ว่าถ้าของเราไม่เปิดก็คือคนต้องมาล็อกอินยูเซอร์เข้าระบบของเราถึงจะดูข้อมูลได้นี่ออกไหมแล้วก็ได้ข้อมูลแบบต้องดาวน์โหลดไปทั้งก้อนหรืออะไรอย่างเงี้ยนี่ออกมันก็ไม่เรียกว่าแชร์ใช่ไหมครับมันก็จะ complicate นะครับก็จะเป็นอย่างนี้โอเค continue please
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that if you want to share data, you must think, even in private companies, who are the owners of the data? So for a private company, you have the marketing department, you have different departments. So does it mean that which department captures the data are the data owners? Or should the IT department be a data owner? So this is where we need to be able to identify who are the stakeholders that can share data or make use of the data. And in some companies, data ownership is an important issue. So we need to identify who, if you want to do this sharing, whether within government or private sector companies, who are the owners of the data, who are the people who need the data. They are the data users. I will talk about that in data governance. But the key when we talk about data sharing is we must look at the standards, the purpose, the ownership, and importantly, how frequently you want to share the data. So in Singapore's context, how many of you are aware about Singapore's change of address? Any of you have been to Singapore? So do you know that when we change address in Singapore, we can go to any police post and change our address from our ID card, and within 24 hours, 40 government agencies will get the data as well. So it is part of the data sharing mechanism. And because of sensitivity of data, last time the government agencies will share among government agencies, but the moment a government agency becomes a privatized company, in Singapore, you know the hospitals, there are no more government hospitals, they are restructured hospitals. And because of this data sharing, they can no longer get the sensitive data. For example, if a person dies, they will not know because of this privacy of data. But it's what data needs to be shared. So only government agencies will get the data. So for the change of address, it's a whole entire framework that was developed for the last 20 years. And the government now is ready to share data, personal data, with the private sector. Do you have concern? I have concern. How can government share the data with the private sector? But how can the government share data with the private sector? What must they get? They must get permission from me. I have to give consent. Then the government can share data with the private sector. And who do you think the Singapore government wants to share data with? The banks. You want to make it convenient, not only from government, but from important private sector companies like the banks. Before I go into this, I want you to think about this concept of data architecture.
But can you last slide before break?
Oh, sure.
Oh, no. I mean, one more slide. Please break.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, it's four more slides, but never mind.
Yeah.
This slide, yeah. Okay. So data architecture is something that organizations need to think about. Capturing a data dictionary is not good enough. You must have a data architecture view of your whole organization's systems from a data point of view. So in this case, you see an example of what the Singapore ID card or a generic nation's ID card, where you have birth data, new citizen data, marriage data, and identity card data. So you can assume that these are from different systems, from different departments within an organization. And we have death data. So if you want to consolidate this into a hub for sharing, then how do we identify all the data for sharing? So if government agencies or even organizations want to share data across different boundaries, we need to have a data architecture. Then we really need to study and understand what data needs to be shared. Not all data needs to be shared. So in Singapore's case, what we shared most was actually address. And I remember in 1996, we had 23 data items for sharing among government agencies. Now, we have about, I think, 72 or 73 data items for sharing across government agencies. When we share this data, it helps us to do more analytics because it can link back to different profiles of citizens that we want to analyze from the different government agency domains. For example, like tax, like customs, and this is where Singapore is looking at data analytics in a very big way, but the key is how do we start data sharing first. So this, I'll end here on this data architecture.
Okay, so ก็อันนี้ก็เมื่อกี้ก็คุยถึง data sharing นะครับเขาก็ดูตัวอย่างให้มันดูว่านะครับนี่คือการแชร์ระหว่างอะไร department ต่างๆนะครับสุดท้ายได้เป็น single view ขึ้นมานะครับว่าเป็นยังไงนะครับ
Okay, so I was talking about the data architecture overview. So when you want to look at data for sharing, whether in government or private sector, you need to really have a data architecture view of the whole entire organization. So when you want to really master your data, that's where you really need to look at the data architecture of your whole entire organization. Only when your data architecture view, then you know where your data sources are, and if you have a lot of data, that could be the start of your big data initiatives. So in this instance, is the example of the ID card department of two, three countries which I have summarized for the organization. And once you have identified what the common data and useful data, then you can proceed for sharing. So in the next slide, here is an example of what we call the data hub from Singapore's case, where we broadcast address change. So it's called OSCAR, One-Stop Address Reporting System. And this system is now in its third generation, where we started first in 1992. And now this is the third generation system where we do sharing across a data network for Singapore government agencies. So the People Hub every day will broadcast data on the address updates to different government agencies within 24 hours. And they can also broadcast other data, but this is an example of the change of address. And what is important is that every data that's shared, there's also reconciliation to make sure that the data is sent correctly. When you send out data, it's always important to check whether you use audit trails or what mechanisms to ensure that the subscribing government agencies get the data updated correctly. So this is important. When you share data, you must always make sure that data is correctly sent. If there are any errors, you resend again. So this is where our change of address has helped Singapore become very efficient. So a question was mooted in Parliament a few years ago. Can government share address data to the private sector? So an initiative has taken place where we talk about this concept called MyInfo. It's a personal data repository. In Singapore, we have this concept called SingPass, where we have a one common ID, secret ID to access government services. And within SingPass, we have this thing called MyInfo, where all the shared data by government is put here, and they ask you a question. Do you want to share this info with other entities, like the banks? And this is very important because now you know that data privacy is a big issue. So with MyInfo portal, you tell the government, I'm willing to share my data to the banks that need my services. So if I'm going to start a new bank account with the bank doesn't need to get the data from me. You'll get the data from the government. So this is where it's very fundamental. And when I say approve, means I give consent to the government to share the data with the private company. This is a very important example of how government now starts to share personal data with the private companies.
โอเคนี่ก็เป็นตัวอย่างที่ดีนะครับของเขาที่พยายามจะจัดการนะครับคืออย่างน้อยให้เราเห็นว่าตอนนี้รัฐบาลมีข้อมูลอะไรของเราอยู่นะครับแล้วก็เขาจะมีการติ๊กให้เราว่าเราจะแชร์กับใครบ้าง นะครับหรือถ้ามีใครมี request มานะครับย้ำอีกทีนะครับว่าเวลาเราเข้าสู่ดิจิทัลอีโคโนมีเนี่ยนะแชร์ริ่งข้อมูลเนี่ยลึกๆมันมีความจำเป็นนะครับเพราะว่าอยากจะบอกเลยอย่าง Google Map ใช่ไหมที่มีแทฟฟิกถ้าไม่แชร์มันบังคับแชร์นะ Google นึกออกไม่เอาไปได้แบบอะไรก็ได้แต่ว่าเราจะรู้ว่าอะไรไอ้สีแดงสีเหลืองเนี่ยเป็นไงมันมีประโยชน์มากนะทุกวันนี้ไม่อยากจะแซวคุณเชื้อพอเลยเดี๋ยวนี้ไม่ได้ฝากจอสอร้อยเลยดูสีแดงนี่พอเลยนึกออกใช่ไหมว่ามันแม่นเลยนะมันแม่นใช้ได้เลยนะผมว่าแตะตรงนี้ปุ๊บสีแดงเกิดจากอะไรการแชร์ข้อมูลเพราะฉะนั้นตรงนี้แต่ว่าตรงนี้ก็เป็นวิธีการ manage คืออย่างน้อยให้เราเห็นครับได้ครับครับนี่ไงถ้าเรามีแบบนี้แต่ตอนนี้ผมไม่แน่ใจแต่ผมคิดว่าเขาตอนที่ไปทำแบบประชาชนเราเห็นนะว่าเขาเก็บข้อมูลแล้วมันเก็บอยู่แค่นั้นแหละและอีกตัวหนึ่งก็คือแค่ฟิงเกอร์พริ้นท์เนี่ยนึกออกใช่ไหมผมไม่แน่ใจว่ามันดาวน์โหลดเข้าไปในนั้นแบบไหนครับครับใช่ครับไม่เยอะครับรับรองคุณใหญ่เป็น address ของเราจะแชร์ไม่เยอะครับไม่ต้องห่วงประเทศเรายังไม่ค่อยแชร์เท่าไหร่ยังไม่ค่อยแชร์จริงเพราะว่าเข้าใจว่าเก็บที่ตรงนั้นน่ะบิตก็ไม่เยอะอย่างฟิงเกอร์พริ้นท์เนี่ยรู้สึกว่าจะไม่เก็บหรือเก็บแค่ไม่เยอะมันจะมี resolution ไม่เหมือนกันอย่างเช่น256บิตหรือเก็บแค่32บิตอะไรอย่างเงี้ยมันจะมีต่างกันโอเค She asked me other question about how the data but I will get you later this information okay continue
So this is really many Singaporeans are very happy with the change of address because it makes it so convenient to change your address and don't need to notify the government. Just change your address at the police post and all the government agencies will get your address. And Singaporeans really enjoy this benefit. So I just want to ask a little question. I just want to share a little point here. If you don't report, will the government know? I did it for myself. 1 year later, the government found out. And I have to actually change my address. So that means that someone is monitoring the data. Okay, I think many of you all know the concept of analytics. The key thing in analytics is that how do we inspect and collect the data? How do we clean and transform the data? And after that, model the data so that we can make useful information for decision making. And we all know that there are many ways of collecting data. The key is asking questions and testing hypotheses. So by now, we already know that when we do data analytics, we must get the right data. We know what questions we want to ask or what problems we want to solve. So it's not about just collecting data for the sake of collecting. And when we look at whole entire government digitization process, we must be very clear what data we need so that we can do analytics. If we have not been focusing on data collection and analytics, we should start doing now. But we must think about this whole process when we get the requirements and designing the new systems. Here are new analytics that we can take from the internet and social media. So for example, many companies now are looking at social media analytics. People are looking at experience analytics. How do you feel about events? How do you get feedback? And yesterday I talked about service innovation. Now people are looking at service innovation analytics. So analytics is becoming the fundamental in every process or every service that we have. And the key is about thinking about what data to collect in these areas of domain that we find useful. So again, think from the data point of view, then you know what data you want to collect. So this whole concept of data-driven view is very important when you want to look at data analytics. So I have some definitions here about big data. And I think by now we all know what is big data all about. But the biggest challenge is where do you get the data from? So the public data available on the internet is one of the sources for big data. Census is another. But to me, if you want to make the data useful, you must map back against data from your company or from your government. And this is from your operational IT systems. Once you have these three sources of data, then you can make sense of the big data. What problems, what questions you want to ask, because the way we do traditional data is so different. As I said before, big data could be hype, but if you're big companies with a lot of data, then it's useful. So let me ask you, what do you think is the most easiest example of getting big data? You think about it, you use it every day. Someone think about it, what is it? You use it every day and it's a big data solution. Social media is one. Search engine, okay. But what, I give you a tip, you use it every day. Smartphone. And because of the smartphone, there's so many applications of big data because of the transactions. And in Singapore, at all our MRT stations, you heard about Singapore's problem, right? We have free Wi-Fi in the MRT stations. Do you know why we have this free Wi-Fi in the MRT stations? Because when the train breaks down, we know who are the people using the train, and we can do analytics on how people move during normal times, as well as when there are breakdowns. So a lot of people didn't know, but the free MRT service is to capture data like that. The telcos cannot share data because of the Telecommunication Act. So, in fact, telco data is the most useful actually for big data. And in Singapore, we are very strict about it. You must get permission from the agencies and permission from the regulatory provider. In this case, ours is IDMA. The other thing that is something very new, which many people are talking about, many governments talking about, is open data. So what is open data all about? Open data means the data is open. So who provides this data? In Singapore, the Singapore government is doing a lot of initiatives on open data. And we advocate and we have made as much data available, more than, I think, 8,600, 8,900 sets for the public to use, for people to design mobile apps. I'll share a little bit later on this example. But the key now is that why can't government share to the citizens and businesses this data they can leverage on to improve the livelihood of citizens? So in Singapore, how many of you have been to Singapore recently? You've been to Singapore, right? Do you know that if you take the bus in Singapore and the train, you don't have to wait 10, 20 minutes for the bus or train. There's a bus application to tell you all the bus schedule. If the bus is late, you even know. So this is an example of really open data where the government provides all these data sets. The challenge is, how do you get the industry, how do you get individuals to want to make use of this data? And open data is one of the key initiatives for governments to really move into this smart city concept. So you can see the example there. All the different domains, from mobility, from health, and Singapore, we know that the citizens are very important. So we have taken initiatives to share health data to the public in the sense of how to improve the health, but we also, for individuals, make the health data available to them. And we have even gone the next step to help the poor people. Singapore has set up this Ministry of Social and Family Affairs, where they are now doing a lot of outreach to the citizens, and they are trying to collect data to have more active programs for the less unfortunate. Okay, this is a very interesting example about how the Land Transport Authority, the authority in charge of transport and mobility, where it makes the data available to the citizens. We share real-time data as well as dynamic data, data that gets updated regularly. So the example about the bus schedules, the data is available real-time, so that citizens can make use of the app, and you'll be surprised. You go to the bus stop, at least half of them will use the bus app. So it's very convenient. And for me, I'm very lazy. I will not wait more than 20 minutes of the bus for the bus. So I'll look at the schedule. 5 minutes before, I'll run to the bus stop and the bus will come. Similarly for trains. So this is where the importance of open data is key. And if you're interested to find out about Singapore's Open Data Initiative, you can go to their website, data.gov.sg. What Singapore has done is, I think I marvel and I give our government credit. Singapore also looked at what data to be shared internally within the government as well as externally. Externally is the data.gov initiative. Internally with the government, we have this data catalog which identifies all the data that agencies can request, but you have to ask for approval from the different agencies. Once you ask for the approval, this data will be shared for you. And my good friend and my colleague was actually involved when this initiative first started 4 years ago. So in Singapore's case, we try to make all kinds of data available, from traffic accidents, from taxis, even jams on the expressway. We make this data available. And what I find that is very important is that anything you're not sure, check the government apps, you'll find it.
โอเคอันนี้ก็เรื่องคอนเซ็ปต์ของ Open Data นี่เมื่อกี้ผมเกริ่นไปแล้วนะครับว่าจริงๆในยุคของ Digital Economy เนี่ยสำคัญมากเลยนะครับเพราะฉะนั้น Government จะต้องดูนะครับความจริงผมยังไม่แน่ใจเดี๋ยวจะถามเขาเนี่ยนะครับเมื่อวานคุยกับคุณสุวพรเรื่องนึงบอกว่าโอเค Uber Grab มีข้อมูลถ้าวันหลังแท็กซี่จะแข่งขันอย่างที่บอกเราต้องแข่งขันใช่ไหมมันไม่มีข้อมูลอ่ะนึกออกใช่ไหมเพราะว่าไอ้ Uber Grab มันมองจากท็อปวิวมองลงมาตรงไหนมีเยอะรถไม่ต้องวิ่งขับจอดไปเฉยๆจะบอกตำแหน่งจอดให้เสร็จสับเป็นยังไงใช่ไหมครับแต่ถ้ารัฐบาลสามารถจะเอาข้อมูลของ Uber มาเช่นบอกเขาว่าให้ต้องเรคคอร์ดนะว่าขึ้นเมื่อไหร่ลงเมื่อไหร่ตรงไหนแล้วก็เอาข้อมูลนั้นมาแชร์ไว้แท็กซี่ตรงนั้นก็เอาข้อมูลนั้นมาวิเคราะห์ต่ออีกหน่อยนึงก็สามารถจะเป็นไปได้นี่คือประโยชน์ของมันนะครับประโยชน์ของมันว่า Data เนี่ยมันจะเอาไปต่อยอดได้หลายอย่างอย่างน้อยก็ช่วยทำให้การแข่งขันมันเป็นไงมันง่ายขึ้นนะครับในตรงนั้นactually I just have an idea I don't know anyone who can help me yesterday we have a discussion about Uber and with a traditional taxi or something like that and you know Uber or Grab has an advantage of having analytics look at the overall picture of okay how many people come in and at what time or something so they strategically put the service in those areas to save the cost why typical taxi will keep driving using their common sense using their experience or something like that organize those it is possible that the government not a force but sort of like say that okay Uber you need to tell me where you pick up the customer and where you drop off the customer for the safety sake or something like that and the government use that information for the public so a taxi group or taxi can analyze that and can be the same level field that basically where is the customer and basically what time is it possible or I just dreaming
If you mandate Grab or to share information, you can share. But if you share this with the taxi companies,
we don't shall we open it we open it right if the taxi company come and take a look it's fine but the same thing we also force the taxi have to do the same thing right
so if from the perspective of transportation, knowing where the common roads are to get taxis or this Uber or Grab, then it's possible. So then this can be an open data initiative. And you need people to run the apps. If you in Singapore, most of them are done by companies and individuals, and they leverage on the ads and all that to get some income.
so it is possible
Yes,
yes
possible. We actually, just to share with you, what we have done in Singapore is, whatever information that can be shared, we must decentralize the data. It can be shared.
okay
Normalize the data.
normalize okay yeah
In fact, for Grab Taxi, the World Bank has an arrangement with them where they provide data for better traffic management. So there is an example of actually sharing that sort of data. But let's take a step back. If you're in a city and you're looking at transportation, one should look at transportation not as public and private. Actually, there are transportation assets. Those might be public transportation assets. Those might be private vehicles. And there are people who want to move from place A to place B. And how do you optimize the total transportation assets available in a city for efficiently moving people from A to B at a low cost? So which means that there might be an opportunity going forward where because you are able to locate people using smartphones, you know where exactly those people are. You're also able to know where those people generally move. So that analytic can help you to devise a system which is agnostic to public or private transportation and optimizes the movement of people. I'll give you an example from Seoul City. So what was happening is that there were a lot of people at night who don't have access to public transportation. And what Seoul City did was they looked at the location of phones, and for those phones, they know what is the home address of those people. And they used that data to quantify the number of people who needed a night transportation service. And they actually introduced something called an owl bus, you know, night owl bus. And that was done based on just pure data analytics. And it was a service which was very widely appreciated because of that. So I think there's an opportunity to think creatively and innovatively in this space.
โอเคก็คือเหมือนกันนะครับเพราะอย่างที่ผมเรียนแล้วว่าแต่เมื่อวานนี้นะครับถึงวันนี้พูดถึง Data สำคัญนะครับว่าบทบาทของรัฐบาลเนี่ยทุกคนจะต้องแชร์กันนะครับที่ต้องเข้ามาแล้วเพื่อที่จะว่าเราสามารถจะต่อยอดแล้วก็จะเกิดเซอร์วิสต่างๆมากมายนะครับเซอร์วิสต่างๆมากมายซึ่งอันนี้นี่ก็คงจะเป็นเรื่องยาวเหมือนกันในประเทศไทยเราไม่เคยทำอะไรเร็วครับ just keeping that is very important so open data is a platform of the analytics friendly service we follow is we try to put the right data okay but I always say that in Thailand we do slow okay that's good
and most important many agencies own all this data so in Singapore we have a coordinating agency which is a statistics agency the Department of Statistics I'll call it SingStat they are the ones who manage the catalog so that any agency know what data they want they can look at the internal catalog for external catalog they can see what they want to share as open data initiatives. Okay, I'm going to a very interesting area. It's all about AI, about deep learning, about machine learning. The key is that we have technology now that can think like a human brain. We call this technology cognitive technology, with things like pattern recognition, neural networks, natural language processing. And the challenge is that how do we make use of these technologies effectively so that we can make use of the data for decision making, for actions to be taken. And we call this data cognification. In fact, natural language processing, neural networks, many of these technologies have been around for the last 10 to 15 years. And except that they were not that mature. And because technology has moved so fast that many of these technologies have matured to a point that they can be commercialized and they can even be made available on the cloud. So when we talk about data cognification is how can technology be used like human brain, human thinking and learn. The key point is about learning, deep learning, capturing knowledge and learning. And how this knowledge learned in these AI systems helps to provide data for us to be more effective in making decisions. So if you look at the example there, how many of you play Go? Anybody play Go? Anybody play chess? Okay, never mind. Of your, I'm more active. So in this example here, AlphaGo was a technology developed by this company called DeepMind. And it beat the guru of Go, the number one expert in Go. It beat this guy a few times. So it clearly shows that all these AI technologies are maturing. And importantly, they can evaluate and execute strategy. That means they can think almost like human being. I mean, some of you all may think that it's quite frightening, but if you can help us and it's not a threat. I mean, you saw some of the shows, right? Like, for example, what show was that? Terminator. Isn't it scary? But to help us, I think at this stage now, you help us a lot when we want to look at data cognification. So if you see the next diagram, okay, you don't have to look like diagram, just listen to me. It sounds very technical, but it's not. There are now providers like IBM's Dr. Watson, Amazon Web, Google, that provide many of these technology engines for us to develop applications. So, and we all heard of dengue, the dengue disease? You all know what is dengue, right? The mosquito bite, then you get fever. And once you have a dengue outbreak, it can spread to different parts of the neighborhood, even across different districts. So I want to share this example of how the data quantification works. What happens is that there's an AI engine that has the analytics, the machine learning capability, algorithm, and it also stores the database. And what it does is that it gathers public data. Remember I told you the concept of public data? It gathers data about the weather, about the environment, and different data sources to build up its knowledge base. Then you look at the history of dengue cases. That means to capture all the dengue cases, and if, most importantly, you find out where did these cases happen. And if there's a dengue outbreak, they take and capture all the current cases. And once you input this into the system, you can actually find out where will the dengue spread, up to 80% accuracy. And this system was tried and tested in Malaysia and in Brazil when they had the Zika virus. So it's technologies like that. At the end, all this data from the data quantification, the prediction, the trends, helps you to take action and more importantly, prevent dengue from spreading. So this is one example of data quantification.
Okay. Let me summarize a little bit. อันนี้เขาพูดถึง AI แล้วก็พูดมาหลายคนแล้วนะครับแต่แค่ย้ำอีกทีว่าความสำคัญของอะไรข้อมูลถูกไหมยิ่งไปถึงแล้วพูด Big Data ใช้ข้อมูลเยอะแล้วนะ AI แม่งใช้เยอะกว่าแถมต้องคือจะมีประโยชน์ก็ต้องมีแพทเทิร์นเข้าไปตั้งแต่ในอดีตเลยไม่ถึงจะทำอะไรต่างๆเหล่านั้นได้เพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยอย่างที่ผมบอกแล้วทุกอย่างมันของเราเนี่ยยังไม่เริ่มเลยแต่ว่าถ้าทำให้ดีนะครับเรื่อง Data อย่างอยากจะใช้ AI เนี่ยก็ต้องกลับไปถามว่ามึงมี Data หรือเปล่า แล้วมันถึงจะใช้ได้นึกออกไหมครับอะไรต่างๆถ้าเกิดยังไม่มีนี่ก็คือจบนึกออกไหมครับเพราะว่าไอ้วันหลังเนี่ย AI มันแค่โปรแกรมหนึ่งนะครับกดเข้าไปโป้งมันก็วิเคราะห์อะไรให้เสร็จสับเลยนึกออกใช่ไหมซึ่งมันจะดีมากแต่ว่าเป็นไงเอ่ย Data เรามีหรือเปล่านะครับเท่านั้นเองโอเค continue
And this is another one closer to the heart of Singapore. You know, Singapore, we have a good transportation system, right? But sometimes we want to travel in comfort, but taxis are a bit too expensive. So what Singapore government want to try was to experiment with a private transport concept where you create a special bus service from one end to the other end through crowdsourcing. That means you get to find out from people where they want to go from the original point to the destination point. And people can download the application. It's called Beeline. And they tell the application where they want to go from their home to the office, depending on different parts of Singapore. And what they have done is they have developed this application, and based on all the inputs from crowdsourcing, that means everybody tell the agent, this company, and through the Beeline app, where they want to go. And what the Beeline app will do is to look at all the source and destination points. And this is an example of the map they have put on their website. So based on the need of people, they'll announce new bus routes. And people using the Beeline app will just decide which bus route they want to take. So everything is not designed by the company. All the routes, destination from home to office is through the application. And it's really making use of AI. And when you use the service, you travel in comfort because it's a private transport. And importantly, it is cheaper than taxi. And these are some of new innovative service through Singapore's Smart Nation initiative.
So just a question. So actually this application is also calculate the profit, right? It has to be plus to accept the route, right?
Yeah. So it will offer the price, how much is it, so that it can cover the cost. You're right.
Okay.
And you'll be surprised, the private transport, they have actually this service now being offered by companies. But with this app, it'll be more profitable. It'll be win-win for both sides.
โอเคนะครับอันนี้ก็เป็นตัวอย่างอีกตัวหนึ่งนะครับของเขาก็คือว่าคือทุกคนแชร์ Data กันนะครับเหมือนก็อยากจะไปไหนเนี่ยแต่ไม่อยากนั่งแท็กซี่มันแพงไปอันนี้ก็คือนั่งรถตู้แล้วกันผมว่าประมาณน่าจะประมาณรถตู้ใช่ไหมครับก็บอกเข้าไปว่าจะไปไหนแล้วเดี๋ยวเขาจะสร้างขึ้นมาเองหลังจากมันดูมีอยู่ 4-5 คนอยากไปเส้นทางนี้ก็จะไปดรอปทุกคนเลยแล้วก็จะ forward กลับไปว่าโอเคเดี๋ยวจะมาพิกอัพตรงนี้คุณจะไปถึงอะไรเส้นทางคุณประมาณนี้อะไรต่างๆเหล่านั้นนะครับซึ่งผมก็เดาว่ามันคงจะถามเหมือนกันว่าอยากไปถึงกี่โมงเป็นไปได้ไหมอะไรอย่างนี้นะครับแล้วก็สร้างมาก็เป็นเขาเรียกว่าอะไรนะ non fix line non fix bus line right non fix bus line
Based on routes.
based on route yeah okay Thank you.
Okay, so the question now we ask is that we collect a lot of data. So do you know what the main problems about sensors? Different sensors have different standards. And what the Singapore government is trying to do is to how to deploy some of these shared sensors. And this is an example. If you look in the slide there, it looks at what? It looks at how to ensure cleanliness, how to ensure the flow of people traffic, and even detect the water levels. And so example of this shared sensors is looking at from a CCTV perspective. So instead of doing different sensors, we can share the sensors to have different needs. Why not? So this example, and when we look at data quantification, how can we use this data to make better analysis to help our citizens, to make the road clean, make the smooth, and most important, look at the water level, direction, detection in this case. So you heard in Singapore, we had a lot of floods the last few days.
Really?
Yes. So there was this story 10 years ago when the weather became so unpredictable. I remember, I think it's about 2008, 2009, and Orchard Road was flooded. So that time I was doing some consultancy for the Vietnamese government in Vietnam. My Vietnamese colleagues tell me, if Singapore cannot solve the flood problem, Vietnam don't have to worry. But in reality, we have a serious problem coming up because we are making it very inconvenient for the citizens as a smart nation view. So if you go to Singapore, you look at all the canals, they have two sensors. One looks at the water level, the other one actually looks at the water composition. And increasingly, a lot of other smart initiative pilots will be implemented. So let me share you one more. We actually have an intelligent water management system. So when we look at this stage, the data quantification stage, what is important is that you must have a command center so that whatever data you collect, it can be analyzed, it can be made ready for the command center to take action. And in this case, they have sensors at all the water pipes. So any leak, breakage, the command center will know. And in those areas, definitely there'll be a video link there so that they can see where the field teams go to repair the problem. So this is one example. And the other example that Singapore is trying to look at in a very big way is looking at how to use automated water reading at our new towns that we create, so that at a glance, they will know what the water usage. And they also can monitor who are the heavy users and who are the light users. And Singapore is now implementing the phase billing for the high users and low users. Those who go beyond a certain point, they'll pay higher tariffs. So this is an example of how we look at this data quantification. Okay, data security. So, okay, I expect you to ask me, so what's the difference between data security, information security, firewalls, network intrusion detection systems? So I just want to focus on the data continuum from a data security view. So we talk about the data stages. Data generation is actually by itself. Then we talk about data capture. When you capture data, you go through data transmission, and it goes into the data storage, which is your databases. Then once you have the data, you want to share the data sharing. Then you go into data analytics. And then after that, some aspects will be data quantification. So the key principle here is how do we secure our data through the various stages of continuum to make sure that data is secured. Importantly, we don't want any unauthorized users to touch the data. In fact, to me, unauthorized users are a greater threat than cybersecurity. But the key is that cybersecurity is important, and I want to highlight. So what's the difference between a cybersecurity attack and a data breach? What is the difference? Or can you see any similarities? This requires a change in thinking. And importantly, what happens when there's a data breach and your own personal data that you're supposed to be protected by whoever is using it, the company is using it, doesn't get leaked out? So anybody can share with me what is the difference between cybersecurity and data breach? Which is more important? You ask the IT people, they say cybersecurity more important. You ask the user say data breach is more important. So data security is important to secure data. And what is important is we want to make sure what measures we can take. So I just want to highlight some of these points. When you want to look at data security, you must importantly look at it from a data point of view. That's where personal data protection comes in. From a policy angle, or corporate policy or government policy angle, how do you assess the data in your environment? How do you secure the data? And how do you protect the data? That's where IT comes in. And importantly, when there's a breach, how do you respond to the breach? How do you solve the problem? You all know what's information security. Many of you know there's a lot of information security and needs to protect the data in your organization. It's all about the CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data. I think many of you all know this. But from a device angle, from the firewall, are firewalls really safe? No, right? Because people could have actually penetrated to your system by the back end, and that's where intrusion detection systems monitor funny, unusual activities. And I think you know now that hacking has become so popular that many countries do not know that they have been hacked. And I know of a company called FireEye. There have been threats in the organization for a few months and nobody knows. When they go in, they can detect the threats. So, in a nutshell, when we look at data continuum, data security is an important element, but there are many things to handle as part of the measures for data security. The pictures actually show you what these measures mean. Okay, so quite straightforward, right? Data security. You let the IT people worry, but you also need to have people who are in Singapore, we have people who cover data. We call them the data protection officer. Every company in Singapore must have a data protection officer to ensure that there's data protected policies, data protection policies within the organization to handle any data breaches. And in Singapore, end of this year, we'll have the Cyber Security Act, where IT service providers, like those telcos and all, must have a cyber security policy to secure itself. If there's any breach, they may be fined. So Singapore is looking at that policy now. So if you want to see, take a look at the figures there. Singapore, you'll be surprised, have a lot of hacks. And importantly, you look at the people, 2,512 phishing URLs, 43% of security incidents reported by individuals and SMEs through phishing attacks. And being spoofed, we have banking and finance, even brands like PayPal, Dropbox, and Google get affected. Even government organizations in Singapore get affected. So I just want to highlight a little bit, earlier on you were talking about data protection. In Singapore, we have this Personal Data Protection Act, where we talk about the creation, usage, and disclosure of data. And we talk about consent. So nobody can take your data and keep unless they get consent from you. And the consent can be what? Through SMS, through consent form, when they ask you to provide your data. And importantly, if the company has your data, you can ask them to provide the data, your data for you to take a look. And if your data is wrong, they are obliged to correct the data. So this is what the Personal Data Protection Act is in Singapore. And as Rantip said, Europe is implementing the GDPR. And what they are doing is that every business who wants to do business with EU must comply with the GDPR. So if you don't have any of these compliance, your company will have problem doing business with EU. Because Singapore, in anticipation of this, that's why we implemented the PDPA 3 years ago. Okay, this is the most boring topic, but the most important. How do you govern data in the organization? And when you talk about data governance, what's the primary focus? The primary focus is to ensure the high quality of data. If there's no management group looking at the data, after a while, your data quality will drop. And that's why this data governance is becoming very important. In Singapore, it's very important. And in many countries, they only start to look at it. We have recommended this to the Mauritius government because there was no governance group looking at data. And we recommended a management group to look at this. And we recommended the Prime Minister's office because they were in charge of the ID card and passport data to manage this. So what is important is that you must define data policies. How are you going to administer your data? How often should you review the data that you have? How much compliance you have in terms of data definitions and standards? And importantly, how do you classify your data? Whether is it private, whether is it confidential, top secret, and who is allowed to share the data? And importantly, if you look at the 4 groups here, we need 4 different groups of people to be involved. Who is the data owner? The data steward. Who is the data steward? Data steward is the top management. Who are the users, which is the data, users of data? Who is the data owner? So which group you think IT is in? IT is in the data custodian. IT doesn't own or make decisions. Decisions are made by management in the data steward group. The data owner is the one that owns the data. Custodian is the IT department. So this is an example of what data governance is. Any questions on this? I know this is quite a new area, but it's become a very important hot topic, especially. Data steward is the group that makes the decision on the policies, the direction, how you want to manage data, how you want to bring new data, what new data you want to capture, for example.
โอเคนะครับวันนี้เขาก็เลยแตะเมื่อกี้เราพูดถึง Data จะคลีนยังไงจะไปยังไงนะครับเขาเลยมาแตะประเด็นสำคัญอีกตัวนึงคือนอกจากเราจะเก็บแล้วทำให้มันคลีนแล้วนะครับสิ่งสำคัญที่สุดก็คืออะไรเราต้องให้มันมี security ด้วยนะครับวิธีการที่จะทำให้ได้ security ก็คือต้องมีการจัดการที่ดีแหละเหมือนอย่างเมื่อกี้ที่บ่นกันไงว่าโหพอเราสมัครอะไรไปแล้วข้อมูลเรารั่วไหลอย่างที่บอกเราไอ้คนที่อยู่ในบริษัทนั้นขโมยไปหรือเปล่าไอ้ระบบพวกนี้มันจะช่วยถ้าเรามีวิธีการในการที่จะป้องกันมันขึ้นมานะครับเพราะว่าชื่อเสียงขององค์กรนี่สำคัญเหมือนกันนึกออกไหมบางทีลูกน้องพลาดหรือลูกน้องไม่ดีนึกออกไหมมันก็นำไปสู่เพราะฉะนั้นถ้าเกิดเราจะอะไรนะถ้าเป็นคุณรานดีก็พูดถึง digitize organization digital twins whatever everything we are in digital ถ้าเราหลังเรามีดิจิทัลถูกไหมฮะข้อมูลอยู่เพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยการดูแลรักษาข้อมูลเป็นอะไรเป็นสิ่งที่สำคัญมากเลยนะครับเพราะทุกอย่างของเราอยู่ภายใต้ตรงนั้นนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยในเรื่องนี้ก็จะเป็นเรื่องหนึ่งสำคัญนะครับเรื่องสำคัญที่อาจจะไม่ใช่เป็น priority ของ agenda ในวันนี้นะครับแต่ว่าในชีวิตจริงเนี่ยสำคัญมากเลยนะครับที่จะต้ององค์กรพอเก็บข้อมูลมาแล้วมีอะไรแล้วเนี่ยเราต้องรักษามันด้วยนะครับขึ้นมาเพราะว่ามันมีเรื่องของความชื่อเสียงนะครับถ้าองค์กรไหนเนี่ยข้อมูลถูก breach ไปเนี่ย CEO ต้องลาออกนะบางทีธุรกิจเจ๊งไปเลยเพราะไม่มีใครอยากจะเข้ามานะครับว่ามีปัญหาอะไรนะครับโอเค move on
So let's look at the business process. Remember I was telling you about business process, right? Once you know what your business process are and you have defined the procedures, how do you provide a business service? In this aspect, how do we provide public service delivery? Where we will look at accessibility, timeliness, clarity, and cost. So this is where we want to make sure that our processes can support public services, for example. And at the end of the day, what data do we have and what is the quality of this data? So I just want to share a few examples here to think about what are the data issues in a nutshell. Is the data the correct value? That means, does it match against the original application that came in? Is the format of the data correct from what you specified in the data dictionary, for example, or in your data policy? Integrity of the data. Is the data accurately captured? Did someone change it? Or was data corrupted when you were doing the update? And importantly, is the data complete? One of the biggest challenges we did in Mauritius was that during data capture, the data was not captured correctly or it was incomplete. As a result, some of the citizens faced a lot of problems when they went to get a service. And what's the biggest example in data completeness? The name is incomplete. I don't know whether you have these issues in your ID card here, but in Mauritius when you were there, these were some of the issues. The data was incomplete. And because of this, that's where data governance come in. So you begin to see now that from the whole spectrum, data is actually very important. And if you don't capture it correctly, you don't manage it correctly, it will affect the quality of data in your IT systems. And that's where your analytics will suffer. And can you really do data codification? So I finished the whole end-to-end of the entire data continuum. So we look at, let me summarize again, right? What's the first one? Data. Data what? Data generation. Second, data
capture,
data capture. Third, data
transmission.
Fourth, data
storage.
So from storage, what's the next one? Storage, sharing. After sharing, analytics. Data analytics, then data cognification. Good. So let's try again. What's the first one again? Generation, data generation. Second, data capture. Third, transmission. Fourth, storage. Fifth, sharing. 6, 7. Okay. Y'all remember, at least after this session, you know what is data all about. But what are the key 3 issues that we must be aware? We must make sure that data quality is important. You must know what data you want to capture. If you don't capture the data quality, you can't even do big data. And third, what's the most important one about third? Governance. Okay, so I'm going to move into the last part of my presentation. I have about 10 slides, and this is looking at the data piece or the data cognification piece from Singapore's view of smart nation, and I'll try and share other countries' example. Okay. So everybody say that we want to do smart city or smart government initiatives. So what is the meaning of smart? I was talking about it just now. What was smart? Sensors, right? Sensors. So in fact, it's the sensor technology. Is this whole thing about data cognification or cognitive technologies, thinking like the human being that is become so intelligent, and using these technologies to help to make lives of citizens easier. I just want to highlight one key point if you're looking at the smart city initiative. When you look at smart cities, the whole purpose why smart cities became important, it was because of this concept of urbanization. That means that there's been studies say that by 2060, our cities will be so crowded, we have many social issues. That's why the thinking of smart cities came in, and that's where smart cities will help to make lives easier for citizens. And there are different domains, from transport, mobility, healthcare, education. So these are an example. So I just want to recap that. In Singapore's concept, we actually have been doing a lot of this smart technologies initiative for the last 10 years. And I've seen Singapore move. And now the challenge is how does Singapore move the next stage with this approach? And according to our government, they say that smart nation is critical for Singapore's survival. So if you look at the picture there, at the heart of it is this thing called the Smart Nation Platform. So what does this Smart Nation Platform mean? So I'm going to give you, this is actually an infrastructure, a very logical infrastructure. But I want you to take a look from a data-driven view. So what does it mean? Think from a data, don't think system automation. Think for data. What is this data thing that we are trying to do here? So in a smart city, we talk about data transmission, right? Communications is very important. So when you look at communications, the key is how do we ensure the wireless connectivity to sensors? So remember I was saying, only way sensors can be effectively deployed if they are wireless. Second, the sensors and probes. How do we sense, capture, and register environmental information? So this is a framework for you to think about if you want to look at any smart technology initiative using sensors. And in Singapore, the key is this thing called the Smart Nation Operating System. It's a very big word, but in a nutshell, which I think they're still looking at it, is how do they process fuse information, that means make sense of information, and share this data with different government agencies. And from the examples I shared in data quantification, you can visualize what the government is trying to do. And importantly, they are looking at security and how can they do more research, and how can they provide the service, ensure the maintenance as well as the support. So this is a technical view, but you look at it from a data-driven point of view. So where does data come in? So this is where Singapore's platform is being developed now to provide future smart nation applications. So have you heard of the term intelligent transport system? Yes, right? So what does it mean? It helps us to make our roads and manage the traffic. So if you look here, we have this thing called intelligent transport system command center. This is where the center is to manage and look at all the traffic flow. And around it, you see the different types of system that will update the command center. So if you look at the top left, we call it the junction electronic eyes. This is where they monitor the junctions for traffic conditions. So every traffic light can actually monitor with the cameras there. Can you see the camera on top? On the right hand side, you have the green light system. They call it the glide system. If you are in Singapore, when there is little traffic, the lights will go faster. When there's more traffic, the traffic green light conditions will slow down according to the traffic flow. On the bottom left, we have this thing called the EMAS, Expressway Monitoring Advisory System. So if there's any accident on the expressway, the cameras will detect, and a tow truck will come in, and within 5 minutes, if there's not a jam in the first place, the vehicle will be taken out so that no jam will happen. So this is where we try and manage the traffic in the expressway so that there'll be a smooth flow. And the other one that is very interesting is the traffic scan system. How does the government monitor the speed of the expressway? They actually have sensors, speed sensors, in many taxis in Singapore. And the data from these sensors collected goes to HQ so that they know what is the average speed at the different expressways. And in Singapore, if you drive, when you go to town, always not easy to find car park. So what they did was they implemented this parking guidance system where they have sensors in every big car park in town, and they put it on the road as a road sign here. So when you want to go and park your car, you know where to park. You won't waste time. And because if cars go wrong in Orchard Road, you create a jam. So this is interesting. And there's even apps now on your mobile phone to look at. And the last one is a little bit cute. Certain roads, at certain times, they don't want people to go in. They don't want cars to go in. So they have an electronic sign. So in peak hour, you're not supposed to go in, because if you go in, you create traffic jam. So these are the majority of key systems in Singapore's transport system. And you can see the value of the data collected, the traffic data. And I think you all heard by 2019, we will have a GPS electronic road pricing system. Now you go under the bar, the sensors will detect you and you get billed. In future, the electronic road pricing, the ERP, will be using GPS.
Oh, basically you track the car.
This one is a big social issue, but government is keeping quiet. You didn't hear from me. It means everywhere your car know, you can be charged for moving on the roads. It's going to happen in 2019. I heard the system, which was awarded to one of the largest SIs in Singapore, NCS, more than $1 billion. So I want to take a step upwards. Okay, we chunk up. I shall talk about digital government yesterday. And to share with you, what has helped Singapore a lot was that when the government started its computerization since 1980, when the NCB was formed, the Singapore government in 1989 took the trouble to establish 3 data steering committees for people data, for land data, as well as for business data. And they knew that all this data will help to improve efficiency. So while developing the systems, they assigned key agencies to manage this data as source data. So for example, the Ministry of Home Affairs was in charge of people data because they have the ID card department. The Singapore Ministry of Law was in charge of land data because they manage all the land. And Ministry of Trade and Industry was in charge of the business data. So just imagine, we have been doing data governance and data sharing since 1992. And the systems are now in the third generation. So that is why Singapore could easily do open data. And many of our government operational systems are into the third generation. And that is why Singapore is able to extract data sets, anonymize the data sets for sharing, and we find that it has reaped a lot of benefits. So the government can focus on its real primary objectives and goals, while citizens can make use of this data to develop their own apps and businesses as well to help the community. So if you look at this in a nutshell, we had three main goals. Two main goals. One is for domestic stability. The second one is for ease of doing business, or in a nutshell, economic development. So we want to make sure that how does government, business, and citizens react together, work together and collaborate. And importantly, how we can provide services for e-government from G to G, G to E, G to B, and G to C. So G to G is what? Government to government. I think you all know that, right? I think it was briefed to you all. G to E, government to citizen, employees. G to B, government to business, and government to citizens. So it is important that on the G to G part, we focus on public services and how we make services convenient to businesses as well as to citizens. So from the people point of view, this is important. From the process point of view, how do you ensure efficient services? And from the data point of view, we want to break the silo among government agencies. So it's just a holistic view of what we have done for the 3 data hubs, how we improve the efficiency of public services. So the 3 hubs are here, and I've added in the data sharing piece where the SingStat, the statistics agency, manages the data catalog for internal data in the government and manages the open data for public. So this is in a nutshell what Singapore has done, and I would say that we are very lucky that our government leaders back then saw the importance of data. Yes. Yes. To citizens. Okay. In Singapore's context, the government employees also play a role in public services. And because they are also serving the citizens, we want to make services to citizens, to employees better. So what examples of government to employee services? Leave system, electronic, transport claim system. So employees, yeah, government to employees. Government to, yes. Okay. Can I continue?
Yeah.
Remember you hear about...
Hold on. Let me summarize it one a little bit.
Okay.
ก็you go back one นะครับ อันนี้กรณีของเกาหลีของสิงคโปร์เนี่ยเขาก็แบ่งกรุ๊ป Data เลยหนึ่งก็คือกรุ๊ปของประชาชนโอเคเราคุยกันแล้วนะครับอีกกรุ๊ปหนึ่งก็จะเป็น business ใช่ไหมครับเป็น business ก็คือภาคธุรกิจจะวิเคราะห์ข้อมูลอะไรอยากจะดูบริษัทนี้แข็งแรงจริงเปิดมากี่ปีก็ส่วนสำคัญนะครับแล้วก็มีอีกตัวหนึ่งก็คือเรื่องของที่ดินเรื่องของแลนด์นะครับแล้วก็คือนี้เป็นกลุ่มของเขาประเทศไทยจะเหมือนหรือไม่เหมือนก็ว่ากันนะครับแต่ของเขาแยกออกมาเพื่อว่าผมว่ามันก็คือมีแอปพลิเคชันของมันแตกต่างกันออกไปนะครับโอเค
So just a brief summary of this. You heard about the establishment hub or the business hub, which the agency that captures all the data, all the business data for sharing within government. What Singapore government has done now is they have extracted the data and do data analytics on the data. So for example, you can find out which company owns, what are the subsidiaries of which of these companies, find out who owns the different companies, even find out the wealth of an individual who has businesses. And these are the examples of what they help to promote transparency in the Singapore business. Because you want to do business in any Singapore company, you can search anything there. And there's even the analytics information that's available. And importantly, these are examples of analytics where they have analyzed the data of the relationship between companies and individuals. So when you go into the system, you pay a service, you can easily query and know what are the relationship between this company, this director and this company and all the companies around. And you can even find out the relationship between different companies. Who is the main parent stakeholder and their subsidiaries.
นี่ขออธิบายให้ฟังนิดนึงจำได้ไหมของเราเคยมีปัญหาเรื่องบริษัทต่างชาตินิติบุคคลอันนี้มันจะดึงมาให้ดูหมดเลยว่ามีคนนี้ไปถือหุ้นอยู่ตรงไหนบริษัทนี้มีความสัมพันธ์ยังไงนะครับอันนี้ก็คือของสิงคโปร์มันดูเยอะนะครับ
Singapore, many countries just provide the company profile and their financial information on a year by year. But we have looked at the relationship between the different owners and the different companies. So this is really wonderful.
ก็เป็นตัวอย่างที่เขาใช้ฐานข้อมูล business ตรงนั้นมานะครับเพื่อแอปพลิเคชันแต่ว่าอย่างที่เขาบอกตรงนี้ว่าเนี่ยถ้าคุณอยากรู้บริษัทนี้เป็นบริษัทมีตัวตนวิวัฒน์ยังไงคนก็เข้าไปดูได้ซึ่งมันก็มีประโยชน์เหมือนกันถูกไหมครับเราจะทำธุรกรรมกับบริษัทนี้ยังไงก็ลึกๆเข้าไปดูได้นะครับทำยังไงอะไรนะครับก็คงจะได้มั้งอันนี้ต้องไปถามเขาแล้วอย่าผมจะถามผม แต่ว่ามันคงมีแหละครับจริงๆเขานั่นอยู่แล้วนะครับพวกนี้นะครับโอเค
So if you want to find out more information, I put in the website for you. Go and take a look on your own.
She asked me that it's very word in Thailand which is popular is are you normal unusually rich? So actually I tell you unusually rich it means you cannot find any link here, but he's famous. So that is we call unusually rich.
I think the government has ensured that everything is available except certain key people in Singapore. That's what I would say. Okay, my last few slides. We have even implemented cameras in all government housing flats and car parks in Singapore. And implementing this, we have implemented 62,000 cameras in 10,000 blocks. And the police camera footage has solved 1,600 cases. But let me tell you the joke. There's no data analytics in yet. They have just called tender to do data analytics as well as surveillance. So Singapore is going to the next stage. After implementing these cameras, where does the video analytics come in? So they just called tender about a few months back. So you can see where we are trying to move towards a smart city. Okay, I won't cover much about the data and the ICT link legislation. I think this one you can read for yourself. The Data Protection Act and the Cybersecurity Act, as I talked about just now, is important, and it will change the way organizations manage their data. Okay, this is a summary of our e-government journey. I think Ashok may have shared a little. We have started doing data management since 1990, and we are now 2016. In the process, because of technology convergence, we have our NCB became IDA in 1999, and last year, and officially this October, the Media Development Authority, the authority in charge of broadcasting, was merged with IDA, and two agencies came about. One is GovTech. GovTech manages the Singapore modernization of government as well as Smart Nation, and the other agency is IDMA, Infocom and Media Development Authority. Because as technology converge, agencies get merged. When NCB became IDA, it merged with the Telecom Authority of Singapore. So what I'm trying to say is that if you look in a nutshell, we have many master plans over the years, but our data hubs have been instrumental in making us have a smoother journey, especially when we provide e-services. And now we are here now, and we're looking at smart nation. And you can see that internet, big data and open data is really how Singapore wants to move forward. So this is where we have shared with different countries to go on the e-government journey. There are different stages. Many agencies look at e-government planning and all the ICT master planning. I think what I need to do is to highlight the key transformation steps. We have shared this with Mauritius, Vietnam, and a few other countries, Brunei. You need to have a vision and master planning. And when you look at that, you must have process design for technology adoption. That means you must do BPR, and people must understand why they're changing the processes. And since we are talking about data, data governance and information management is key. And once you know your requirements, that's where you do the technology procurement outsourcing. And when the vendors come in, you do the implementation, and that's where change management, awareness, acceptance, adoption of the people mindset is important. And from there, you continue the maintenance and operations. So when you look at how you want to do your planning, it's from your conception to reality. And the three main areas that is important, as I was mentioning: governance and change management, project management, and service management. And this is the whole area what we call transformation management. And if you look at it now, in digital government, if you want to move to the next stage, for many developing countries, we are talking about digital government transformation, DGT. So with that, we will look at the business or government competencies, the IT vendor competencies. So with that, you want to summarize?
Yeah, no. So let's clap your hand first.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Actually, we can call him Mr. Data. Okay. After 3 hours. Okay. I think he's make data a little bit heavier. Okay. But I think today เราได้จะเรียนรู้นะครับว่า data เป็นจุดเริ่มต้นเลย first step นะครับเป็น first step ของทุกอย่างนะครับเขาเมื่อกี้ก็มีสไลด์ของสิงคโปร์นิดหนึ่งใช่ไหมว่าไอ้ที่เขาแบ่งเป็นประชาชนคนธรรมดา business แล้วก็ land มันยังเป็นฐานข้อมูลอยู่ทุกวันนี้ที่ทำอะไรเยอะแยะมากมายไก่กองนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นวันนั้นเรื่องของ data เนี่ยอย่างที่บอกสำคัญมากนะครับตั้งแต่เริ่มต้นของการออกแบบ process ต่างๆนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นก็ผมคิดว่าวันนี้เขาน่าจะพูดได้ผมเข้าใจว่ามันค่อนข้างจะหนักนะครับแต่ว่าผมคิดว่ามันได้ให้ความสำคัญนะครับว่าการออกแบบ Data นะครับตั้งแต่ตอนต้นสำคัญขนาดไหนนะครับและกระบวนการดูแลข้อมูลทำให้ข้อมูลมันถูกต้องก็สำคัญมากๆเลยนะครับกว่าถึงจะไปไฮเทคเช่นพวก Data Analytics พวก AI ต่างๆเหล่านั้นเนี่ยถ้าขั้นตอนแรกประมาณว่าคือพูดง่ายๆถ้าไม่มีเบสิกนะครับเราก็จะไป Advanced ไม่ได้นะครับ everything start from the basic so data is a basic very key fundamentalนะครับการละครั้งหนึ่งนานมาแล้วมีคนเคยรู้จักปิกัสโซไหมฮะปิกัสโซคนที่วาดรูปหยักนะครับแล้วมีคนไปถามปิกัสโซว่าเฮ้ยวาดรูปอย่างยูเนี่ยคือเขาวาดอย่างหยักเขาบอกว่าไงรู้ไหมไปวาดม้าให้สวยก่อนแล้วเขาจะมาวาดอะไรหยักอย่างเขาได้นี่หรอใช่ไหมเพราะฉะนั้นแปลว่าทุกอย่างจะเริ่มต้นจากเบสิกก่อนนะครับโอเค you want to add anything Sandeep I say that somebody asked Picasso, like you can draw very noodle, something like that. And then Picasso said that, you got to start to writing the horse first. That's the basic thing, before you start to draw something that people don't understand, like me. Okay. So I just tell them that data is the basic, but it's very fundamental. We cannot start thing without good basic. And then we go advanced like AI, like data analytics later. Okay. Any more to add? So I think everybody is hungry. So come back here 1:15. Okay, 1:15. Okay. Thank you very much. So give clap again to Mr. Data.